Well, happy Feel Good Friday. Welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, three-man power trip here with you until 5:30 today. Off just a little bit early for Royals baseball on the East Coast. Royals versus Mets. Beat the Mets, step on up and beat the Mets. That's what we're hoping the boys in blue can do this weekend. 3 games in Flushing, Queens. Not Shea Stadium. Used to be. The new Shea Stadium. Citi Field at least doesn't sound terrible until you realize that it's the bank.
Yeah, that's one of those like Great American Ballpark.
Yeah.
Or Coors Field or Busch Stadium where like you don't think about it too hard. You're like, oh yeah, that's a classic stadium name.
Wrigley Field I always thought of as the same way. Like no one associates it with Wrigley Gum, but the Cubs were owned by the Wrigley Gum people when it was built. So it very much is one of the original corporate names.
It is corporate, but it doesn't have that feel to it.
Right.
Made after the
So we are here with you until 5:30 today. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We've got plenty to get to on the show today. We'll talk plenty of Royals baseball here in this opening hour. And when do expectations change for this team? I think there are a lot of things that we need to, consider when we talk about how good this team has been so far. How does that change what we want this team to be going forward, what we think they can be going forward? So we will get to that coming up here in just a few moments. We've also got Change My Mind coming up this hour. We'll talk some NFL draft, some Kansas City Chiefs football during the 3 o'clock hour. Adam Teicher and Matt Miller of ESPN, they've got some latest nuggets on what the Chiefs might be doing in the first round of the NFL draft and what they're hearing rumor-wise, player-wise about the draft. Plus, Derrick will join us for our Chiefs Insider, joining us from ChiefsDigest.com. A lot of college basketball to get to in the 4 o'clock hour. Portal updates on KU, portal update on K-State. Kentucky finally has a head coach. And they got one from the Big 12, but not the coach we thought they were going to get from the Big 12. What is wrong with you? Our 580 Sports Talk headlines and a bunch more coming up today on 580 Sports Talk. We would love for you to be a part of the show. You can find us on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. And you can also drop us a line on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. Before we get started with some Royals baseball, it is time for our first 580 Sports Talk Alpha Media Choose Your Trip contest keyword of the day. Head to 580wibw.com. Right in the center of the homepage, you will see the Choose Your Trip contest, an opportunity for you to enter to win a trip to anywhere you want to go at the expense of Alpha Media. So your code word for the 2 o'clock hour is dining. D-I-N-I-N-G. Dining. Head over. You can use that keyword just until 3 o'clock. Brand new word right at the top of the 3 o'clock hour. So go right now, 580wibw.com, click on Choose Your Trip, and enter the code word dining. Kansas City Royals, big win yesterday. Fun win yesterday for the Royals, just blowing out the Astros. And we had someone who was joking, I believe it was Jeffrey in the YouTube comments yesterday, who said, you got to save a couple of those runs for tomorrow. You got to make sure that you get have some of the offense left. That's the old saying, right? Is that, don't use all your runs today. Got to use them for tomorrow, too. Well, the Mets also put up a ton of runs yesterday.
16, I believe.
So we're going to end up, of course, with a 2-1, 3-2 game coming up today between the Mets and the Royals. But I was curious with how well the Royals are playing. And I will say this, the Royals are playing so well that how have doofuses on Twitter who are claiming the Royals are cheating. A Twins fan was going semi-viral on baseball Twitter today because he was accusing the Royals of cheating. And that's why they were playing so well. The Royals are back. When you hear that, the Kansas City Royals are all the way back.
So back.
But on a serious note, if the offense is going to hit like this, and the starting pitching is going to pitch like this, and you can get even okay production out of your bullpen, and I think we can say that, I think this bullpen, the arms in it are have the caliber to be okay. I think that is about at their level. When do we change what the expectations are for this team? And Dan, you saw this. I did too this morning. Fangraphs has updated their playoff odds, and they now have the Royals with a 35% chance to make the playoffs this year. And they're projecting an 81-81 record. I don't know that I am willing to make that shift at this point.
They like my prediction.
I know. Apparently you were right on. I don't know that I am willing to make that adjustment yet, but I feel like if the Royals are going to keep playing like this, you probably have to consider doing that soon.
Well, this is a projection now that bakes in the results you've already got, right? And the results everybody else has. It's a daily ebb and flow, their playoff odds and their final record projections. For comparison's sake, the Royals projected to a 76 win team from Fangraphs numbers, so a 76 and 86 record. Their chances of winning the Central Division before the season began were 7.5%. Their chances of making the playoffs were 13.2%. So they have dramatically increased their playoff and division champion chances just based on 2 good weeks of baseball. So that shows you that the projection systems are buying in a little bit, that yes, what the Royals have done so far improves their outlook. This doesn't feel fluky to the computer, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And what is the threshold, I guess, for you guys? We have a comment here from JB on YouTube who says, change expectations early in July, then you know for sure if a team is serious or not. I don't know that I would wait that long personally. The one positive thing, and you have heard all of my critiques of Dayton Moore over time, the one thing that I will ride with Dayton Moore on for sure is I think his 40 game number is actually a very accurate time to say we probably know what this team can be. Can they play better than that after 40 games? Yes. Can they play worse than that? Yes. But I think you get the personality, the build, the makeup of a team. I think by the quarter pole of the season, that's a pretty good mark to know. So, by the time we get to mid-ish May, maybe that's even too late for you guys. It's, hey, if we're going to play this well this early, then I'm going to completely change and flip. And all of a sudden I'm thinking 83 wins. I'm thinking 84. I'm thinking Central. The Diamondbacks went to the World Series with 84 wins last year. Right. Maybe we're buying tickets for November 1st baseball this year. I don't know that I would go that far, but I do think I need to give it a few more weeks. But the early returns are positive, and if we have a team in the Royals that is, a number of games over 500 by the quarter pole, the starting pitching is still pitching well, even if it's not this dominant. If you've still got that positive run differential, I mean, why not look at this more positively? Why not raise the expectations? Because that's what this team has wanted. I would assume that everybody in the organization, especially at the very top ends of the front office and management, would tell you they want this team to get out of the basement, to not be the laughingstock team. That's also probably because they're trying to build a new stadium in downtown Kansas City, but they are trying to pitch. We're not a laughingstock anymore. We are a competitor.
We demand to be taken seriously.
Yes. On a serious note, though, I think that's what this team really wants to be and needs to be, frankly. And I need a few more weeks of this kind of baseball to believe that's what they are going to be. But again, I don't know how you can't be at least excited, at least a little bit charged up about this.
Well, what this first 2 weeks has shown you is what the ceiling looks like. And we spent all offseason talking about, well, the Royals have at least raised their floor, which is an important thing to do when your floor last year was 56 and 106, when that was how you finished. It was important that the Royals raised the floor. Well, now we see that maybe the ceiling has raised a little bit too. Bobby Witt Jr. is playing like a bona fide superstar. He has been the MVP of the American League through the first 2 weeks. He has been the best player, the most valuable player in the game. According to any wins above replacement you want to check, he's been either the most valuable or one of the most valuable players in all of baseball through these first 2 weeks. You've seen the pitching staff get out to an outstanding start, particularly the starting rotation. That's where the Royals sunk their resources this offseason, and that has borne itself out really nicely. So not only now do you feel like the floor is higher, you feel like the ceiling is a little higher as well. And so the end result ends up being always somewhere in the middle. Very rare is it that you're your 99th percentile outcome or your 1 percentile outcome. There's always something in the middle. That's kind of where you end up. And I think what we're seeing is that the ceiling might be a little higher for this team than we anticipated. Now there is a long way to go. Last year, the Pirates started 20-8.
I don't even remember that.
Yes. Nobody does, except maybe diehard Pirates fans, because they did not finish the way that they started.
Do you know what their final record was last year?
Last year, what were they, like 74 and 88, something like that?
76 and 86,
Okay.
which means if they went 20 and 8 to start the year, they finished the year 56 and 78.
Yeah, that's
Not great.
No, that's not what you want. And look, Royals fans have been here. They've seen hot starts that have kind of petered out. They remember 2021. They also remember 2003, where the unexpected year, the Nosotros Creemos year with Tony Pena, where I think they came out of the gate 16-3, and they ended up finishing 83 and 79. That was out of the money, out of the postseason, but it was still the first time the Royals had shown a pulse in a decade at that point, and that ended up being an exciting year. So you don't, again, probably want to take out a second mortgage to get ready to buy World Series tickets necessarily these first 2 weeks. But I think some optimism and some excitement is absolutely justified because, as we've said, the way they've played justifies this record. It's not a fluke. They're not winning one-run games by the skin of their teeth and getting blown out in the games that they're losing. In fact, it's the opposite. They're killing teams in the games that they win, and the games that they've lost could have been in the win column if not for some iffy relief pitching in those instances. So there is reason for optimism based on these first 13 games. And the other thing, too, is these wins are in the bank. Like, this 13-game stretch is banked. If the Royals played exactly the way they were projected to play by Fangraphs the rest of the way, if Fangraphs is right, and this is a 76-win Royals team, if they play like a 76-win team the rest of the season starting tonight in Queens, they would win 79 games. If they play like a 500 team the rest of the way, if they play 500 ball, dead even for the final 149 games, it's roughly 83 wins. So already you have taken your range of possibilities past where you might have thought they existed before.
In terms of the growth for this team, I thought this was a really funny pair of comments we just got on the YouTube stream. One from Ryan where he says, if you're not willing to get your hopes up and get hurt, you're not experiencing the full fan experience. Then moments later, JB comments and says, this also shows me how terrible last year was. I'm never putting up with an evaluation year again. I understand both of those viewpoints, which I don't know if they're perfectly, mutually exclusive, but I understand both, that the good moments feel better because you've been in the dumps, you've been through the bad stuff. By the same token, wow, the last few years have been bad. Really, really bad. And I think a big difference for this year's Royals team, to be completely frank, even though much of your position player group is the same as it has been, your core of that group is the same, this team has been just so bereft of talent for years. And Bobby Witt Jr. is obviously a supreme talent. Pasquantino looks like he's a legitimate dude. Garcia is young and developing and getting better. Salvi is who he has always been, but these guys are continuing to get better and to improve and to build on top of that. And again, I think that's something this team has really been missing, is there's just been no development at the major league level. And this, again, I don't mean to dump on Mike Matheny. I said something about him the other day. It wasn't all his fault. He didn't have a whole lot of great players to work with, but under Matheny and during the latter years of just the Dayton Moore regime in general, guys got to the majors and then never got better. I think that was one of my biggest issues with Brady Singer, is that, hey, you're still the same guy that you were when you came up in 2020, and that is flashes of brilliance, flashes of, are you going to make it in the American Association, and never knowing which one you're going to get on any given day. Now you're actually seeing, I was talking about the word intention earlier in the week, but you are actually seeing guys who are building on these things. And I think it's been incredibly important for this version of the Royals in particular, that they are not only improving at the plate, the starting pitching is improving, but the things they were already good at, those aren't going away. They're still good at stealing bases, right? Stolen base numbers, attempts and successful steals, both have taken a precipitous drop from last year when they went way up because of the new bigger bases and the pickoff rules and all that. They have gone down again steadily through a small sample after last year's start. But the Royals are still top 4 in Major League Baseball in stolen bases so far this year. They're still running, and they're running well. The defense, Bobby Witt Jr. is obviously, again, a supreme talent and a supreme defender. Michael Garcia is a good defender. You've had, save for Nelson Velasquez just dropping a fly ball yesterday, which was bad, but also very funny. This is a good defensive team. So you've been able to take those marginal things you are already good at and then stack on top of them instead of having to trade in offense for defense, which is not quite the same thing it is in baseball relative to like basketball, right? Where Dwan Harris this year for KU, right? He had to create more offensively. He had to take on a bigger offensive load. So he was a little more careless with the ball because he had to take more risks. That's something when you have to give up one thing, you can't expend the energy to another. That's a big NBA topic as well. Not quite the same in baseball, but I do think it is important to stack those things. This is a team that has not been stacking anything positively over the last couple of years. So to see that continued growth, I think that's been one of the big key hallmarks of this team finally getting into a part where you're building in the rebuild.
Yeah, it's kind of been rare, actually, to see Royals players get better at the major league level. There's been a little bit of stagnation. Certainly, that was the case with Royals pitching over the last few years. We don't need to relitigate the Cal Eldred era. We all agree that stunk, and there's a reason that he's not the pitching coach anymore. But you just wonder how much development was stunted over the years by a manager and a pitching coach, and largely a front office that was behind the curve when it came to analytics, when it came to data, when it came to the way that they evaluated and coached. The Royals were behind the curve, and they were never going to catch up to the curve with Mike Matheny as their manager, because where did Mike Matheny come from? The old school. Mike Matheny he played for Tony La Russa for years. He learned at Tony La Russa's right hand. That's the kind of organization the Royals were. Now the kind of organization the Royals want to be, again, like we talked about yesterday, it was always intentional. They brought in a manager from Tampa Bay. They brought in a pitching coach from Cleveland. Organizations where they have been able to develop better than their peers. And it's why Cleveland has been a consistent threat in the American League Central over the years, despite not being a team that spends a great deal of money. It's why Tampa Bay has been a threat in the American League and has won a pennant in recent memory, even though it was the COVID year pennant, still a pennant, flags fly forever, despite not spending nearly as much money as the financial titans in their division, like the Red Sox, not so much anymore the Red Sox, but the Red Sox of old, and certainly the Yankees always. There's intention behind that at the very top. There was a reason they brought these guys in. And after the difficulty of an evaluation year in 2023, you're starting to see guys reap the benefits of a little bit more exposure to analytics, a little bit more exposure to data, a little bit better coaching, a little bit better teaching. And guys seem to be improving. Brady Singer is improving. Bobby Witt Jr. getting better as a player. Maikel Garcia making a change that can help him be more powerful at the plate. Like, that's the real encouraging stuff so far, is that what we've seen the Royals do, it's a good way that you've put it, Brendan. It's intentional. Like, all of this stuff is on purpose. It's not, Carl Tuffy Rhodes hitting 3 home runs on opening day and hitting like 7 more the rest of the season or whatever it was. Like, no, there's real intent behind every piece of improvement that we have seen so far. And again, I'll go back to what I said when the season began. One of the reasons you can be a little optimistic about this team is because what wins games, Jerome Tang? Dudes, right? Mm-hmm. The Royals got some dudes. Bobby Witt Jr. right now is the dude in Major League Baseball through the first 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And their starting pitching staff has been full of guys pitching like dudes from start to finish. So I think optimism is warranted. There's a fine line between saying that and saying, hey, you may want to hold off on any major expenditures if you want to maybe go see some playoff baseball this fall. But it's not too early to dream. And certainly this team is giving you a lot more to dream on than any team in the last year.
Sure. I mean, it's the other thing to it, I know we've said this. This is fun in baseball, too. Like, you're not watching these teams grind it out every single day. Like, they're putting up runs. They're hitting the ball hard. They've got good, powerful pitching, and that is something that is legitimately fun to watch. By the way, I know the game is in New York, and I know the Mets are also coming off a dominant win over a team that's better than them. You would all surprise the Royals are dogs today? They're money line dogs on the road. What's the pitching matchup again? The pitching matchup. It's Waka for the Royals. It's Waka and Severino. Right now, if you wanted to go visit our friends at Cherry Van Sportsbook, you can get the Royals plus 116 on the money line. It's even bigger at other places as well. I mean, why not? I might sprinkle a little something on the Royals there. Run line, there's no
Couple units?
value there. Yeah, a couple units. I don't know if I'm that confident, but
let's all get over it.
max unit whale play of the day, Royals money line. No, do not do that. That is not advice. That is a joke. We'll talk a little more Royals baseball coming up later on this hour. We've also got some Change My Mind coming up. We'll talk college hoops, some NFL later on in the show. It's all coming up on this Feel Good Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Sports Talk rolling on this opening hour on a Friday afternoon. Brendan, Dan, and Spencer with you. Want to give a quick shout out to my guy, Connor Onion. He's going to be calling some MLB on Fox action coming up tomorrow. Fellow Park Junior High Patriot and Lyons Township High School Lion. Also started in front of me for 7th grade A-team basketball. He's going to be on the call with AJ Pierzynski and Ken Rosenthal coming up tomorrow.
That's big time.
Big time, big time. He already done a bunch of work for ESPN, Big Ten Network. But yeah, so shout out to my guy, Connor Onion. Pride of LaGrange, Illinois. Not LaGrange Park, though, the superior suburb.
Naturally.
Yeah. But no, I saw that today.
Big rivalry between the two, LaGrange and LaGrange Park?
Not really. And all go to the same school. There's no if you did not know where the dividing line of the town, I'm sorry, they're not towns, they're villages. If you did not know the dividing line, you would have no idea they were different places.
So there's not like people from LaGrange do this, but people from LaGrange Park do this. There's not
a real one. No. No, there's not a real one. Most people, when I say LaGrange Park, if they know the area, they say like a park in LaGrange. No, it's its own town, and it gets to be a whole thing. All right, change my mind time here on 580 Sports Talk. Joe Burrow was speaking today. He talked to Bengals.com as he's getting back into shape, working out after he missed so much of this past season with that real freaky wrist injury, whatever happened to him there. And he was talking about his hopes and expectations for himself and for his team for this year. And he said some pretty positive things, as you can imagine, about the Bengals, including saying, when it comes to competing with the Kansas City Chiefs, quote, we know we have the right people in place. So change my mind. Joe Burrow's right. The Bengals are the team built best to beat the Chiefs in 2024.
And they have certainly given them the most grief in both the regular season and the postseason here the last 3 years. But
and I want to add the caveat here, not necessarily the next best team in the AFC, although I do think they have a claim to that too. Just in terms of how they have built their roster, it is the one that is best suited to compete with the Chiefs.
I guess my pushback on that would be, what does it mean to build a roster that beats the Chiefs?
Yeah.
You have the chance to score on every possession.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that them losing Tyler Boyd and maybe losing, I mean, right now they still have T. Higgins like on the tag and signed it yet, but he's tagged. Like if they keep T. Higgins around, maybe. Like I don't know what their running game is going to look like next year. If they're going to have a credible ground threat with the loss of Joe Mixon. Their offensive line is like fine. It's not spectacular. I don't know. I don't know that I love that offense better than I like Houston's offense on paper.
Okay.
So I was going to say the Ravens.
My issue with Baltimore, because that's the other team that popped up for me first. I really like Houston. I like Houston a lot. I just want to see it from them, see what they are able to build on from last year, especially on the defensive side. My problem with the Ravens is, A, they have to rebuild 3/5 of their offensive line. Their defense, they got to find a new coordinator. They lost a couple of pieces. Patrick Queen, who played really well. Geno Stone, who played really well this past year. Jadeveon Clowney played really well for them this past year. He's down in Carolina. The Chiefs only won 17-10 in the AFC Championship game. Do you know what their success rate as a team was against the Ravens?
I do not.
73.3%. All series combined offensively, the Chiefs had a 73.3% success rate. That's really good. Really, really good against arguably the best defense in the NFL last year. One of the, the Chiefs and Ravens were both, however you want to look at it, top 5 defenses in the NFL last year. And the Chiefs had almost no problem moving it up and down the field. Patrick Mahomes had nearly 10 points of total EPA on his own in a game in which the Chiefs won 17-10. They shredded that Ravens defense, even if they weren't able to convert every time down. I do think it's Cincinnati, because I think Cincinnati has the most, the way they are built, the way they run their offense, which, in fairness, if you want to argue against my point, new offensive coordinator this year. Brian Callahan's gone. He is now calling the plays in Tennessee, where he's now their head coach. So I think there are some questions for all of these other teams in the AFC. The Ravens, are they going to be able to build back to where they were? The Bengals, they're like, this is the last one. The Bengals are in the spot that I think the last year's Bills were in. Like, you better make it shake now, because if you don't, you're probably going to have to eat your vegetables next year. Houston, I just think, is so young. You need to see it again, personally. So that's why I would put the Bengals there, because I think this is their last year where they've got more weapons and a more open offense than anyone else has.
They also still have Lou Anarumo, which he has proven to be able to get Mahomes and the Chiefs number as well as or better than any defensive coordinator out there to date. So that's another advantage that they might have in their quiver as well. So we didn't really get to do either or over under this week. So there's a touch of either or over under to my change my mind this week, but change my mind. There will be 5 quarterbacks and only 5 quarterbacks, no more than 5 quarterbacks drafted in the first round of the upcoming NFL draft.
All right, so let's get through let's run through them here. Caleb Williams is going number 1 overall.
Yes.
Jaden Daniels and Drake May, I believe, are going in some order 2-3. And then
JJ McCarthy.
JJ McCarthy's going to go first round. So then it's either Nix or Penix.
I think one of the two.
One of the two?
And
I think Penix.
I guess I wouldn't be surprised if it's neither, but I have been steadfast in my belief that the Broncos are going to draft a quarterback at 12, and it's going to be Bo Nix. So what I am saying right now is I don't think Penix is going in the first round.
I think he's going in the first round.
You take him over Nix?
Man, as Bomani Jones put it on his podcast, he had Mina Kimes on his podcast on Wednesday. They said, like, the tools are there, great leader for Michael Penix. The Carfax doesn't look good.
Well, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I love Michael Penix's game. I think Michael Penix made more, and I can't say that I've grinded every single play of the tape of both guys, but I watched a lot of Pac-12 football this past year. I think Michael Penix made more NFL throws than Bo Nix made this past year. I love Michael Penix as a thrower. The problem is he has had, 4 season-ending injuries in his career, including 2 catastrophic knee injuries. And he's, 24 already? 25 already? I mean, he's old. He is an old rookie. I just don't know that is something that teams, okay, he'll turn 24 the week after the draft. May 8th, he will turn 24. There aren't a lot of 24-year-old quarterbacks or rookie quarterbacks who step in and are, A, good right away, because usually you're 24 in college or 23 in college for a reason, and B, valued all that highly by the NFL. The one example I can think of is Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow, while still not healthy all the time in the NFL, is a fringe MVP candidate in the NFL. He had maybe the greatest individual college quarterback season of all time. Penix did not have that. So part of me wants to go under because I would not take Nix in the first round. I would not do it. But teams get scared. I guess they don't have a QB.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I think Denver's at. Like, what are you gonna the next year's quarterback class and going into the draft doesn't project to be as accomplished as this one. Are you really going to roll 2 years of Jarrett Stidham? Like, nobody believes that much in Jarrett Stidham. Are you kidding me? There's a reason he's bounced around from team to team.
I guess here would be my rationalization for taking a quarterback there if I was Denver. If I'm George Payton.
Yeah.
I'm getting fired. If it doesn't work, seriously, if this does not work with Bo Nix, I don't have to go through he just took a quarterback. You're going to take a quarterback again. I'm not making any picks again if this season doesn't work. So who cares? And if you're Denver brass, if you're the Walton Penner ownership group, you're saying, well, yeah, we'll take a quarterback next year because we'll have a brand new staff. We're going to have a brand new front office next year, a new GM who's going to be making the picks a year from now. So what do we care if they're attached or not to Bo Nix? So that would be the one rationale I could give you, is that they say, yeah, so what? Sure. Why? We'll take a quarterback. It either works or we're going to end up in the same fate that we're going to get right now anyway.
My argument for, beyond 12, if you're in the middle to late first round and you're thinking about a quarterback, why not wait till round 2? Because it's very unlikely that a team that takes a quarterback, if you take a quarterback in the first round, you're not taking one in the second round. And if you didn't take a quarterback in that first round, then you probably don't need a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So why not just wait? Get a premium first round talent, then wait. Maybe trade up if you want, kind of like Baltimore did, get up to 32 a few years ago, get Lamar Jackson. Why not wait until early day 2, make your move up to 36, 37, and then go get Michael Penix Jr. if that's your speed.
Yeah, unless you, and I would not be in this position, but again, I'm not the Denver Broncos, unless you feel like we have to have Bo Nix. Michael Penix Jr. is not going to be good for us. Bo Nix is the guy. If that's the case, maybe you trade down a little bit and try to get him, but that would be the other argument. I'm with you. I would trade back, or I would just wait until the early part of the second round. I don't think either of those guys are first round pick caliber guys. Not that they can't be good in the NFL, but I would not spend that pick. But teams get so desperate. I will agree with you. I will not change your mind. I think 5 go.
Yeah, I think as well. I just think it's Penix.
What's your change my mind for this week?
My change my mind is who's going to win the Masters. I don't think it's anybody currently in the top 3, which have kind of broken themselves away. 7 under, 6 under compared
to. I'm looking at a live board right now. Your 3 leaders. Well, Bryson just birdied 12, so now he's got the solo lead at 7 under. Bryson DeChambeau at 7 under. Max Homa, Scotty Scheffler 6 under.
All right. I don't think the winner will be either of those three.
I think you are wrong. I think Scotty Scheffler is going to win the tournament.
Yeah, my argument for changing your mind would be there's professional currently. This is my understanding. I am a golf outsider. Dan, you can correct me if I'm wrong here.
Golf insider Dan Lucero, yes.
Currently on the PGA Tour or the USGA or whatever, whoever runs the Masters, there are professional golfers and then there's Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah,
and that would be my argument for Scotty Scheffler winning this thing.
That's as good an argument as any. Yeah, basically that's what Scotty's done. Just dominated the tour, and right now he's one shot back, and I think he's going to hawk DeChambeau down and win this thing. His second green jacket in 3 years. He's already won the thing.
Who won last year's?
John Rahm.
John Rahm. Oh,
yeah.
that was your pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think.
Yeah.
Again, it's a big group at 4 under, but the guys at 4 under are either novices or like Danny Willett's hanging around. I know he's won the tournament before, but he's hardly playing any competitive golf right now. I don't think he's got staying power.
I thought he had retired. I didn't know he was still actively golfing.
Yeah. I mean, shout out to him. Like, he's the one who stole the green jacket. He was just kind of there after the carnage in the 2016 Masters when Jordan Spieth forgot how to play the game for 30 minutes and ended up snagging the coat. But no, I don't see anybody beating Scotty. Like, I just, somebody's got to prove to me they can outplay Scotty for 72 holes.
This is why I chose it, because I wanted somebody to tell me Scotty Scheffler is going to win.
I've got a vested interest in Scotty Scheffler winning, and not just bragging rights over you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, going back to who we chose would win as a dark horse, I know Tiger's not going to win. He has no real chance of winning. He's
gonna make the cut though.
On pace to make his 24th straight cut at the Masters.
That's impressive.
Very impressive.
I will give him that. I will be honest with you. I said this out loud to myself last night. I was watching SportsCenter because I didn't, catch the end of the day at the Masters. I thought Tiger was going to withdraw today. I thought he was going to get about 8 holes.
Yeah, you were telling me that earlier.
I was telling you that this morning. Yeah, I thought.
And there were a lot of people on site who said, "Man, Tiger looks rough. He had to finish his round 1 and then start round 2."
Exactly. And
he had to start it right away, it appeared.
Andy North was on ESPN last night. He's like, yeah, well, he's going to have to wake up at 4 a.m., get treatment, go finish his round, then take an hour off, and then go start again. And I thought, there's no way this dude is going to be able to play, what would it have been, 25 holes today? No chance. So I give him tons of credit. Maybe he withdraws on Saturday like he did last year, but I did not think he would even make it through Friday. So I give him credit for that.
Yeah, he's even par through 17, 1 over for the tournament. Projected cut line right now is +4. So, or no, I'm sorry, it's 5 now. So anybody +4 or better looks like they're going to play the weekend. So Tiger looks safe, and that's pretty cool.
That is very cool. Good for him. Good for him. Coming up next, we've got some more Royals baseball to get to right here on 580 Sports Talk. Have you guys seen the new ballpark specialty being offered at Camden Yards this year?
Yes.
Have you seen this, Spencer?
I think I have, but I refresh my memory.
All right, so it's called the Warehouse Dog.
Yes, I've seen it then.
It is a foot-long hot dog with horseradish-infused brick sauce. And I discovered brick sauce is like a mayonnaise barbecue sauce sort of concoction.
All right.
Along with pit beef queso fundido, pickled pico, and onions on a pretzel bun.
I'm sorry. As cool as it sounds like a stomach ache.
Yes,
I mean, that's true.
Sitting in the sun, if it's a sunny day, it's a day game.
Yeah, that
I
much
would not wanna-
horseradish in the heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have one in the first inning and just, plan to spend the fourth inning in the restroom and
Yeah.
rally for innings 5 through 9.
You have heard my take before. I think ballpark food has gone too far.
Yeah.
What's wrong with just getting a dog at the game?
Like, there isn't any need for this to exist other than for the pictures to go viral.
And radio, obviously not visual medium. I guess we could put this on the YouTube stream, but it's just so big that it's not easy to eat. I mean, I'm going to look very suggestive if I try to mimic this on the video, but you have to hold it with both hands and inhale the thing. There's so much on it. It's so girthy and thick. Now, the hot dog pretzel bun, that does pique my interest. With pretzel buns. No matter what you put on it, I'm going to mess with a pretzel bun. Always the move.
You and Reggie Bush.
But, yeah. I'm pretty sure every time I saw those commercials from Wendy's, I would lean over to Abby and go, I do love a pretzel bun. It's too much for me. Too much. Just give me a regular old hot dog.
A text from the 785 says it's like the KFC Double Down. It's an affront to God.
Now, all right. Now, hold on. Now, that is delicious.
No.
And that is one thing that I will stand up for. The Double Down was ahead of its time.
I remember eating a Double Down for the first time and feeling like, okay, this was 300% of my daily sodium intake.
The biggest problem with the Double Down, and I would eat one right now. If KFC brought it back right now, I would put in an hour of time off during the 3:00 hour and go get one. They never advertised that it had sauce on it. Just like, oh yeah, there's bacon and there's cheese and it's in between 2 pieces of fried chicken and that's the sandwich. They never advertised that there was a sauce on it. So I remember biting into it the first time and thinking, what just squirted into my face? What in the world is this thing? It was weird, and I don't know if it was good, but on the whole, I would eat one again in a heartbeat. Vance on YouTube says, give me a hot dog, nachos, and copious amounts of beer, and I'll be happy. Just a hot dog. That's all. I need like 8 hot dogs, but hot dogs at the game, that's the move for me. I'm trying to think of, I don't think I've ever done one of the extreme things. Most extreme thing I've ever done at a game is like I got buffalo wings when I went to a Chiefs game. What was it? Chiefs Packers a couple years ago. Or I got a big bucket of cheese curds when I went to Lambeau last back in 2019.
Yeah, I don't usually do the tricked up concession items, but I did get the brisket tachos at the K that came in the batting helmet. I did do those. They were really good. I was not able to finish all of them.
I believe that. I definitely believe that. Royals Mets coming up this weekend. This schedule, which we looked at going into the month of April and a few days of March, has broken fairly favorably for the Chiefs. The Astros are not who we thought they might be this year.
Yeah, you caught them at a good time, it would appear, while they're dealing with all their pitching injuries.
The White Sox are disgusting. You want to talk about an affront to God, the Chicago White Sox. And the Orioles, I mean, they're good. We all picked them to make it, I think, to the ALCS. They're very good. You got to face the Orioles again coming up 1 week from today, in fact. The Blue Jays will be competitive. The Tigers have been pretty good, but there's no one on this schedule right now that I don't think the Royals can beat or at least win a series from. Like, I go into this weekend, I think the Royals can take 2 out of 3 from the Mets. I would, in fact, at this stage, knowing what we know about both teams, even though the Mets have been playing a little bit better, I would be surprised if the Royals did not win this series in New York.
Yeah, like anytime you go on an extended road trip of 2 or more cities, you're always happy with 500. Like playing 500 ball on the road and playing winning ball at home is how you make the playoffs, right? Like that's how you get that done. So you take a 500 road trip. I would not complain about a 3-3 road trip on this swing through New York and Chicago. But Yeah, better feels possible. Certainly against the White Sox. You think you ought to take 2 out of 3 at this point from Chicago. If you can get 2 out of 3 against the Mets, come home with a little 4-2 road trip, and you got a 7-game homestand against Baltimore and Toronto, which would be another really good test against 2 playoff caliber rosters. Then you go on the road and close out April at Detroit, which that's going to be a very intriguing early season AL Central series with 2 teams that might be trying to show that they're more than just early season pretenders. And then you go to Toronto with the last game on May 1st. So 19 games from here, 12 of them on the road. If you play 500 ball on the road and have a winning homestand, let's just assume you do that. Let's say you're right around break even. You go 10-9 your next 19 games.
Mm-hmm.
If you're 19-13 heading into the start of May, I think you'd feel really, really good about that if you were the Royals. You'd be 32 games, 6 games over 500. I think that would be, and I don't think it's a stretch on current form to say that the Royals can maybe expect to play even better than that over this stretch. Like they go 12-7, 13-6 over their next 19. Baby, you got a stew going.
I think the Royals should go 4-2 in this road trip. I do.
I think that's a reasonable expectation. Given the quality of opponent, I think that's a reasonable expectation if the Royals are going to continue to play at this level.
If you're the White Sox, how mad do you have to be that the Royals, who are just mired in the muck for all those years, have now surpassed you in an instant, and you never got to the heights you thought you were going to get to, and now you're this. You are the second most embarrassing team in baseball, only in front of a literal Ponzi scheme. By the way,
They had all the forward momentum in the world,
world.
Then Jerry Reinsdorf decided to hire Tony La Russa.
Could have hired anyone else. Could have hired you. It would have worked out better.
Literally should have hired anyone else.
Yeah, well, you hire an old drunk, you get what you pay for.
Something we'll need to revisit at some point. But if you said there's 19 games left in this month?
19 games, if you count the finale of the Toronto series May 1st.
Okay.
19 games from here till
the end of that series.
If you win, what? If you have 10 wins,
yes,
how we'll have to reevaluate this playoff and what our wins rankings would be.
Yeah, I mean, if
at the end of this month,
if you could go 10-9 in that 19 game stretch, that would put you at
19-13.
19-13. Yeah, sorry. I mean, shoot, you have to be talking about being a playoff contender at that point.
Yeah.
I think so.
To.
That would change the expectations accordingly.
Your pitching matchups, by the way, for this weekend, it's Michael Wacha versus Luis Severino tonight. 6:10 first pitch, 5:30 pregame. You'll be able to hear that here on 580 WIBW. Wyatt Thompson on the call this weekend, by the way. He's filling in for Jake Eisenberg, who's got a personal matter, a family wedding he's going to. So it'll be Wyatt Thompson on the call. Then tomorrow, 12:40 first pitch, it'll be Alec Marsh versus Royals legend Sean Manaea. And then Sunday's finale, Cole Reagans. The Mets have not announced their starter as of yet. Coming up in the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk today, plenty of Chiefs to get to, some nuggets on the draft and the palpable lack of buzz for the Chiefs draft this year. Plus, Matt Derrick is going to join us. We've got this week's edition of On Second Thought as well. We would love to hear from you both on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, and in the YouTube comment section. We'll get to it all next hour on 580 Sports Talk. now, 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way here on 580 WIBW. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He's Dan Lucero. He is Spencer Dupuis. We're here with you until 5:30 today when we're out of here for Royals baseball. Taking on the Mets, the Metropolitans. Spencer, do you know why they're blue and orange? The Mets?
I do not know.
They took the colors, one color each, from the two teams who left New York for California. Blue for the Dodgers, orange for the Giants.
Oh, did not know that.
Yeah.
It's a fun fact.
I assume you were aware of that.
Yes, I was,
Yeah.
but it is a fun fact.
It is a fun fact.
I'm glad you shared that with Spencer and our listeners.
If you didn't know, well, now you know. So thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll take you up to the start of Royals baseball at 5:30. This hour, we've got plenty of Chiefs to get to. Big trade involving this year's NFL draft just broke moments ago. Did you guys see this?
I did.
Massive trade.
We've got a player for pick deal here.
The Cleveland Browns are sending offensive tackle Leroy Watson to the Titans for a 7th-round pick. I know many. I would argue I know most players in the NFL. I've at least heard of them. I know something about them. I've literally never heard of Leroy Watson.
Leroy Watson is a Hutch JUCO product
Is he really?
who
Always
played.
Kansas connection.
Yes, he played 2 years there and was a tight end, I'm guessing. Yes, he played. He did not play offensive line in college. He caught 12 passes for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns at Hutch. Played 3 years at UTSA and caught 25 passes for 297 yards and 2 touchdowns. And now he's an offensive lineman. He's played in 7 games in his NFL career.
Wow. How about that?
All of them last year at on offensive line. So.
Jason Peters, another guy who famously did not play offensive line in college. He was a defensive lineman, then moved to tight end, and then to offensive line. And now he's in his 40s and is still trying. I think he's still active. I don't know that he's on a team, but I think he's still active out there.
He may have called it quits.
Maybe.
Because he did. He played for the Seahawks. last
Seahawks,
year.
that's who it was.
He played for the Seahawks last year. I don't know. According to Wikipedia, he's a free agent. So, he has not filed the paperwork.
Not done yet. Not done quite yet. We'll talk plenty of NFL this hour. Matt and Derrick will join us later. We'll talk some Chiefs draft here in a moment. Also, we've got On Second Thought coming up here in just a little bit. We've also got your Alpha Media Choose Your Trip keyword for the 3 o'clock hour. You know the drill at this point. 580WIBW.com. Click on Choose Your Trip. Your 3 o'clock hour keyword is casino. 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 Head to 580WIBW.com, enter the keyword, and you will be entered to win a trip to anywhere of your choosing, courtesy, including, by the way, airfare and hotel, courtesy of Alpha Media. We'd love to hear your thoughts and anything else that comes up on the show today. YouTube stream is open, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. You can also find the video stream on Facebook at WIBW News and Twitter at 580 Sports Talk. And we would love for you to come find us as well on the Top City Metal Supply text line. 785-272-9429 is that text line number. From construction sites to renovations, from the farm to the garage, Top City Metal Supply understands the value of precision and cost efficiency. No more wasted materials and no more wasted money. Just metal cut to the exact size you need. Top City Metal Supply can be found on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field here in the capital city. ESPN this week had a piece involving their draft crew. Matt Miller, who's the Kansas City area local plug for ESPN, works out of Joplin, as well as Jordan Reed. I think Mel Kiper was involved too, along with all their beat writers, with news, nuggets, and notes for every team in the NFL draft. First, Adam Teicher, who we've had on the show many times, in regard to what will the Chiefs do if they don't take a wide receiver in the first round. Adam wrote, wide receiver makes the most sense from a positional standpoint, but they could go in many different directions. Donovan Smith is still a free agent. They could try to replace him. Interior offensive line bears watching, with Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey heading into the final years of their contract, plus the big cap charge next year for Joe Thuney. Chiefs had a defensive end help in each of the last 2 off seasons, but maybe they could still use some help there. So in other words, they could draft anything, which is useful, I suppose. I would imagine offensive line or wide receiver is probably the plan, especially now that Rashee Rice is probably going to miss somewhere between 4 and 6 games to start off this next NFL season. What I'm more interested in is this. from Matt Miller of ESPN, where he says, when regarding the Chiefs draft in general, everything is on the table. That's what a Chiefs source told me when the team added Marquise Brown to the wide receiver room. Chiefs offseason this far is focused on re-signing key players like Chris Jones and Drew Tranquill, but the feeling in the front office is the team won't be forced into picking a certain position based on need. I was reminded by the same source there was league-wide panic last year that the Chiefs needed a receiver in round 1, but instead they waited to round 2 and took Rashee Rice, then won the Super Bowl. So while receiver, left tackle, and corner are needs on paper, don't expect this front office to reach based on holes in the roster. That is the more interesting part of this write-up to me, and it actually made me think, sort of back to something I said earlier in the week when I said that the Chiefs this year, I think, are still, if they did not get a starter in the draft this year, usually you want at least 1 or 2 starters out of your draft class. If they did not get a single one for 2024, they're still Super Bowl contenders and probably deserve to be the Super Bowl favorites still, just running it back with as many pieces as they could from last year. Throw in another veteran free agent receiver, go get Tyler Boyd, and you're doing just fine. I don't think there has been any buzz about the Chiefs draft at all, which is bizarre. Last year, there was plenty. There was plenty to talk about. Receiver. Maybe you could have gone offensive line help a year ago. You needed maybe some secondary help because we didn't know just how good the secondary would be. Needed a defensive end, pass rusher. That's what they ended up taking. I felt like there was a lot of talk and chatter and plenty of murmurs about the draft a year ago. I feel like no one is talking about the Chiefs in this draft. Not at all. There is no buzz whatsoever, which is weird because I like the draft, but I kind of get it. Like, you're going to get a chance to take a wide receiver in a deep wide receiver class, but you're not getting Marvin Harrison or Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors. It's a good tackle draft. You have a chance to get a pretty good tackle in a deep tackle class, but you're not getting Joe Alt. You're not getting Fatanu. You're not getting one of the top end tackles. It's not a great defensive draft at all at any position, but the Chiefs don't need defensive help anyway. It's kind of weird. It's like, yeah, the draft seems like a formality this year for the Chiefs more than it has in recent years.
Yeah, that's, I think, an accurate assessment because we talk about players in terms of raising floor and raising ceiling, and it's hard to get ceiling raisers at 32 in the first place, right? Like typically when you are drafting at the end of the first round, you are not going to end up with a player who dramatically increases your playoff odds just by himself. Not going to find a guy who is going to win offensive or defensive rookie of the year. Typically, there are exceptions to every rule, but generally the odds suggest that the players you find late in the first round with those latter picks, you're doing well if you find a contributor. You're doing well if you find a guy who steadily, consistently contributes as a starter to your team. I still think there's intrigue if the Chiefs do draft a wide receiver because there are a lot of good ones. I think there are day one starting wide receivers that will be on the board at 32. So my level of intrigue is, do they take that guy or do they instead try and find their starter at left tackle with their first pick? That to me is the intrigue for the Chiefs. I think they're going wide receiver and offensive tackle with their first 2 picks. In what order and what number is the pick? Do they trade up? Do they trade back? Do they stay put? I think that's where the intrigue lies as far as the Chiefs go.
Okay, so let me build on that then. If we're talking about you might not be able to get someone who makes an immediate impact regarding ceiling raising, floor raising, does it make more sense then, assuming you stay at 32 or in the neighborhood of 32 with that first pick? Would it make sense to then just try to take a big swing there on a less sure thing with a higher? Maybe it's Xavier Worthy. Let's use him as an example, who everyone is going nuts over because he set a record for his 40-yard dash at the combine. I think A.D. Mitchell is a better receiver prospect than Xavier Worthy, but maybe you think that speed has the ability to turn Xavier Worthy into a game-breaking wide receiver, that is a ceiling-raising guy, that he can truly open things up downfield in a way you have not had really since 2020, because Hill was still on the team in 2021, but defenses had adapted to him at that point and did everything they could to take away that threat down the field of Tyreek Hill. Maybe Xavier Worthy can open things up downfield in a way you haven't had, so you're going to take the big swing there. Does it make more sense for the Chiefs to take a big swing at 32, knowing that none of their holes are unfillable by other means, and knowing that they already have a contending roster? I almost lean that that would be the best way to go. Because if you feel like, hey, we're almost playing with house money here, we're a contender no matter what, we've got this late first-round pick. If it works out, great. We've got the fifth-year option. We can keep this guy truly long-term. If it doesn't work out, I mean, we're going to be drafting 28th or later again next year. We'll just do it all over again in a year. I kind of think that might be the strategy, at least in the first round.
I think that is becoming a possible strategy because of how good they have been sustained.
Mm-hmm.
And you bring back most players. And yeah, they had a hole at receiver last year, but what did they do? They went out and won a Super Bowl. And then they got a very good receiver to come in here, but then you're going to lose another guy for 4 to 6 games around that number. So do you bank on a receiver or do you want to go offensive tackle?
Yeah.
That's the biggest question. And I would trust Brett Veach and his staff to figure out which one is the best for them. And could you swing a Tyler Boyd?
I think for me, just in terms of the positional value, and wide receiver is becoming a premier position in the NFL draft. Generally speaking, it's always been quarterback, which is its own thing, then offensive tackle, edge rusher, corner. That has generally been kind of considered the premier positions, unless you get a rarity, an interior pass rusher kind of guy. Wide receiver is climbing up into that tier. But just in terms of positional value, I would say offensive tackle is the safer pick there. I really like the name that a lot of folks have brought up in Kingsley Suamataia. I don't think he's ever going to be an all-pro. I don't think that's your next, give me any name, David Bakhtiari or Trent Williams or someone like that. I don't think he's that kind of player, but I think could he be Eric Fisher? Could he just be a solid, locked-on player for 5+ years? That I'd be thrilled.
You say Eric Fisher, like, I think the Chiefs would love to find an Eric Fisher in this draft. And
steady.
Not because I think Eric Fisher is like an all-time great Chief, but a long-term answer at left tackle. You feel really good about your offensive line. And I know the game has changed from when Eric Fisher was literally the number 1 overall pick in
maybe
draft.
the worst draft of all time.
Yeah, it's a pretty grim draft when you go and look back at it. But the left tackle position, how we value the left tackle, it's different now than it was then. But what hasn't changed is there is a lot to be said for continuity on the offensive line. And the Chiefs haven't had that at one of the most, if not still the most important positions on that offensive line, which is left tackle. So I think the Chiefs would love to find an Eric Fisher.
I feel like I keep contradicting myself when I think about what the Chiefs should do with that pick, because part of me says the smart, valuable pick is to go with Suamataia or insert offensive tackle here. Maybe he doesn't fit the Chiefs' thresholds. I don't know. I like the player. Maybe they don't love him. Let's just use him as a filler. I think that would be the smart, quote-unquote, safe pick in that spot. By the same token, I think it makes sense given the sustainability you brought up, Spencer. I think that's a good point, an interesting word to use there, and an accurate word to use, is that you have afforded yourself the opportunity, because you've got a good roster everywhere else, to take some bigger swings and take some bigger risks, that you say, maybe Xavier Worthy is the guy. You bank on that speed if he's available there. You bank on those athletic traits, and you say, this is the guy we're going to go with because we think worst case scenario, he's not a player for us. Best case scenario, he opens up the offense to a brand new frontier we haven't seen in several years. But then the third element of this is I think A.D. Mitchell's a better player than Xavier Worthy. And I think A.D. Mitchell's going to be a better receiver than Xavier Worthy. Maybe not quite the same ceiling, but close to it. I would be happy with any of those options, I think, which, again, is a pretty nice place to be if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. I still think I'm going to lean offensive tackle. I think you are more likely to find starting wide receivers later than you are starting offensive tackles.
Aren't the Chiefs proof of that? Travis Kelce was a 3rd-round pick.
Mhm.
Rashee Rice was a 2nd-round pick. Like
Mhm.
they don't have a 1st-round wide receiver. But it is always so tempting, and why we spent so much airtime and so much oxygen last year on what about Odell Beckham? What about what about DeAnthony Hopkins?
Yeah.
Not DeAnthony Hopkins.
I loved him in Silence of the Lambs.
No, what?
Silence of the Lambs. Oh man, you flip it around AMC. I'm pretty sure they show Silence of the Lambs like every 8 hours on AMC.
They do. They
It's
show
on constantly.
quite a bit. But it's so tempting to imagine, what if we took a wide receiver with all of these gifts and we gave him to Patrick Mahomes in his prime?
Yeah.
Like, we have a text from the Top Email Supply text line from the 913. We need weapons. We'll never ever have a quarterback like Patrick. Draft wide receivers.
I don't hate the logic.
Like, I understand. And not only is it exciting to imagine, it's the sexier pick, right? Because those guys have stats and it's fun to play around with. Like, okay, these were this guy's statistics last year. What statistics could he put up? Should I draft him in fantasy? That kind of thing. It's way sexier to pick a wide receiver at any point in the draft than it is to pick an offensive lineman. I totally understand that. And I do think there's a rich like vein of wide receivers waiting to be tapped into at 32. I think that makes a lot of sense. The flip side of that is if there are so many outstanding wide receivers still there and not so many outstanding offensive tackles who have a chance to start day one for you, then you need to go get that left tackle, and then you can wait on the wide receiver market a little bit, because Brett Veach has shown he's not shy about trying to move up. He used one of those 5th-round picks to move up in the 2nd round and see if he can't get his hands on a Malachi Corley or a Troy Franklin.
It's a good spot to be in because there are so many options if you are Kansas City. That's the positive spot there. Which would you go with? Would you take receiver or tackle if you had to pick?
I think I'd take tackle because I think they should get Tyler Boyd.
I've always liked Boyd as a player. I think that'd be a great addition, at least for this year. And you do still have to draft a receiver one way or the other. It's not like those are your 2 biggest needs, but you can only have one. I think they're still going to take a receiver. I still would not be surprised if they took 2. I really wouldn't. We saw the name Luke McCaffrey brought up a bunch in mock drafts over the last 2 weeks. In fact, I would love that pick. I would be stoked about that. You give me Troy Franklin and Luke McCaffrey and Rashee Rice as your wide receiver room for the next 3 years. That's a really good receiver room, or has the potential anyway to be a really good receiver room. Plus late stage Travis Kelce, throw in another young tight end in a year or two. That's a good group, man. That's a really good group. That's a lot of good or potentially good options for Patrick Mahomes. That's what I would do. If I was him, I would still take multiple pass catchers this year. We'd love to hear from you. We are less than 2 weeks away from the start of the NFL draft. In fact, we're 2 weeks from today from the start of the 2nd day of the NFL draft. Let us know your thoughts on what the Chiefs should do, either on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, or let us know in the YouTube comments. 580 Sports Talk is the name of the YouTube channel. We've got On Second Thought coming up next, and then we'll talk to Matt Derrick about what he would do coming up later on this hour on 580 Sports Talk. second thought, I made a couple for the week here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, Dan, and Spencer with you. We'll talk some more college basketball later on in the show. Plenty of rumors circulating in the portal for both KU and K-State, both of whom it sure sounds like are in the mix for some really high-profile transfers. And in fact, one in K-State's regard is picking up a lot of steam here today. So we'll get to that coming up later on in the 4 o'clock hour. Matt Derrick will join us in just a little bit. My, on second thought, I guess, is that I have been saying all year there is absolutely no chance Zach Clemens ever plays another minute for KU basketball. It sounds like Zach Clemens is the third big next year for KU, which I wouldn't do. But if Bill Self is to be believed that he is the most improved player on the team, she said at KU's banquet yesterday, and KU needs to have a big man, I mean, I guess keep him in-house. He's already there. Sure, I guess. I mean, if he comes back, I was very wrong. I've told Spencer, you asked about it. I've talked about it on the show before. No way. They're not taking the red shirt off him. He's going to go transfer to Montana State and never be heard from again. I was totally wrong if it sounds like he's for sure coming back.
A strange arc for Zach Clemens.
Bizarre.
Presently, right? Like, he was very clearly a guy after last season where it felt like, yeah, transfer for him is probably for the best for all parties involved. Like, there are some flashes, but it doesn't feel like a fit. Doesn't maybe feel like he's a Big 12 caliber player. Go enjoy the sunshine. Go have Cal Taco and enjoy Cal State Santa Barbara, UCSB. Not Cal State Santa Barbara. Terrible job by me. My apologies to the Gauchos.
Shout out to the Big West Conference.
Yes. Shout out to Santa Barbara, Goleta, Hollister, the whole Hollister Ave, the whole thing. I thought that made a lot of sense. And then he reversed course. I don't know. What, you got some tar on his heels at Goleta Beach, decided beach life wasn't for him, and
I guess
wanted to come back to I'm making a lot of locals only references. My mom's in town. There's half a chance she's listening right now. And she's from Santa Barbara, California. So shout out. Wasn't for him. Came back to Kansas. And again, it kind of felt like the forgotten man. Like, he's taking a redshirt year in the middle of his career.
Yeah.
But you know who else that did wonders for, relatively speaking? Mitch Lightfoot.
Yeah.
Because Mitch Lightfoot took that mid-career redshirt year and was a contributing player after that.
Shoot, his wasn't even mid-career. He was a true senior when he took his red shirt.
Right.
And look, he ended up being the seventh man in a 7-man rotation for a national championship team. And no one is going to come out and be like, oh, well, I mean, Mitch was the difference maker. No, Mitch was in there so David McCormick could get some Gatorade. But he played. He was out there. You weren't playing freshman KJ Adams.
Right.
Or freshman Zach Clemens, who had one role. He had one key role for Kansas for a couple of seasons. Stop Tanner Groves. He was the Tanner Groves stopper. And I give him credit for that. But the other thing, too, and we talked about this before, it's hard to find someone who's willing to come in and be a backup. And someone who is willing, as a veteran, to go into the portal and say, I am going to go and willingly only play 10 minutes. And it worked with Parker Brown because Parker Brown was not the kind of basketball player who could play at the Big 12 level, frankly. He was willing to just go play somewhere close to home where his family was already beloved. It worked out in that regard for him. And we saw on the floor, not really a Big 12 caliber player. You're not getting those kinds of guys. So if you can say, all right, Hunter, you're the 5, assuming he comes back. KJ Adams is probably going to be your small ball 5 again. And then you run some combination of Zach Clemens and freshman Flory Badunga as your third. You can live with that. But I was wrong. I never thought he'd wear a KU uniform again. So hand up. I was wrong on that one.
On second thought for me this week, last year before the Masters, I gave the people some picks. And every one of them ended up being right. Not just my pick that John Rahm would win the Masters, but my top 10, my top 20, all of those picks, they all ended up being right. It was a very lucrative Masters for me. I did not get a chance to give those picks on the air this year. So I gave them on social media. Some of them look really good. Cam Davis in the top 20, shot 69, he shot 72 today, and he's 3 under par for the tournament. He's only 4 shots off the lead right now. That looks good. What does not look good, Adrian Moronk. We need to have a talk about the Polish Hammer, who I picked to finish in the top 30. Adrian Moronk, a cool 78-80. And he's not waiting around to see if he makes the cut because he ain't making the cut. He's 10 shots off the cut line. He's second to last in the tournament. He is already on a flight back to Poland or the next tournament, wherever it is he wants to go next. So I will not be batting 1,000 this year on my Masters props. Thank you, Adrian Moronk.
Honky tonk, Moronkadonk. Spencer, do you have a
Chris Berman? We need Chris Berman doing Masters highlights again so bad because we would have gotten some.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yes, I
do.
do.
Second thought.
On second thought, John Rahm is not repeating.
Where is the old John Rahm?
He's tied for 39th. There's a chance he might not even make the cut.
Yeah, he's the cut line is right now 4. He's 3 over for the tournament, 2 over today through 9.
Or 9, yeah.
Tough day for the international players, at least for Poland and Spain. and where's Hovland from?
Norway,
yeah, not good for him either.
Victor Hovland was 7 over through his first 5 holes. He's currently 7 over through his first 7 holes, and he stands to miss the cut. But a lot of guys miss the cut. Dustin Johnson missed the cut, but it looks like he's going to miss the cut by 9 shots.
Wow.
And he's won this thing before. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's another on second thought. My 2 picks for our Masters pool.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
G-Dub's pilot is on standby, unfortunately.
Dang. Hey, he's out there playing, and that's a win. Gary is a winner because he's playing this week.
Amen to that.
No doubt.
Just getting there and starting is the big deal for Gary.
We'll head back to some talk about the Kansas City Chiefs on the other side of this commercial break. Our pal Matt Derrick's going to join us for our Chiefs Insider on 580 Sports Talk. Let's go to Kansas City, and let's go talk to our good friend Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. He joins us every single Friday at this time for our Chiefs Insider on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. You can go find him on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick. Matt, we are running a contest here at the station. Our corporate ownership is running a contest. A trip for the winner to anywhere in the world they want to go. Airfare, hotel, all that included. If you win, you get to pick the trip. So I ask you, if you could go all expenses paid anywhere in the world, where would you choose to go?
Oh, wow. That is a tough one. I'm not sure. I mean, gosh, that is a really tough one. I mean, I suppose it should be somewhere with a beach that's really nice, that's just relaxing.
Yeah, beach is the
Oh,
move.
man. Yeah, I mean, it'd have to be fairly exotic. I know. Yeah, my wife likes to watch like cams on YouTube of different places, and there's like one in Thailand that she watches all the time to be able to watch the sunrise and the sunset.
That's
And
cool.
I would never go to Thailand myself, but on somebody else's dime, might have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if someone else is paying for it, you got to go buck wild, right?
Exactly. I mean, I might take myself to Hawaii. It could have happened one day. I'm never taking myself to Thailand. Although the thought of flying to Thailand absolutely just terrifies me.
Especially on a Boeing plane right now, probably.
Well, when you're 6'4", you don't want to fly anywhere over about 3 hours.
Man, I feel that. It is. I always see people, the people complain about this on Twitter all the time. Why are you getting up right when the plane lands? Like, why are you such a nerd? My legs hurt, dog. It was a long flight. I was cramped in a little space. I want to stretch out.
Yeah, if it's like a 3-hour flight, I'm going to have to get up at least once to walk around and stretch, or I'm probably going to get an embolism or something.
Right. I don't want to end up like Bonnie Bernstein and get deep vein thrombosis. I got to stretch these legs out.
Exactly.
It's a health concern.
Exactly.
Thank you, Matt. I'm glad someone is on my side in this matter. The Kansas City Chiefs made a little news over the last week or so. In fact, just after we went off the air together last Friday, I believe it was, the Chiefs agreed to a new deal with Mike Dana, who is coming back to the team on a 3-year deal. I know the official numbers were reported. It was either earlier today or yesterday. It's a very friendly 3-year, $24 million deal for the Kansas City Chiefs, and they get back a good rotational player. The deal, I think, makes a lot of sense for both sides, Matt, but I'm just surprised it took so long for Dana to find a new home.
Yeah, I mean, and it is a good deal. And I think that, he was kind of helped out a little bit in a sense, that at least the Chiefs were, I think, that, teams were only willing to go to a certain point, especially as it goes further and further. Because right now we're in a period of where you're close enough to the draft and to the compensation formula deadline in early May that teams don't really want to sign players to, contract more than about $3 million a year because it's going to change the formula. And if you're in line to get a comp pick, you could knock yourself out of that by signing a free agent of a certain value. So, for instance, the Chiefs, when they signed Carson Wentz, if you look very closely, his contract comes in just under $3 million, so it doesn't impact the compensation formula. So they still have the potential of getting back maybe a 5th-round pick for Tommy Townsend and Willie Gay. But I can't imagine that they're going to, sign anybody. So Daniel's kind of in that ballpark too. I mean, if another team were to sign him for, say $8.5 million right now, I mean, they could lose a comp pick. It would fit into the formula. So, the Chiefs, I think, were able to get him at a pretty good price. I mean, when you look at the deal, it works out to 3 for $8. It really is more closer to like 2 for 7.5 with an option for a 3rd year. I think it's a really, really good deal for the Chiefs. You get Mike Dana at a pretty good price for at least a couple of seasons to get you through maybe a little transition period here. And on top of that, Mike Dana is a really good glue guy. He just plays a lot of different positions. Good teammate, good attitude. I mean, he's a good presence in the locker room. So all those, he checks all the boxes.
The defensive line is now, they're bringing back everybody. I think we've talked about this already, but now with Dana back in the fold, they really are truly running it back with that group. How important do you think it is to address the defensive line's future in this year's draft? Maybe not with the 1st-round pick, maybe not even with the 2nd-round pick, but knowing that while Chris Jones is locked in, now you've got Dana for the next 3 years, you still don't really know what you have in last year's draft picks. Amenahu is only under contract for 1 more year. Wharton and Nadi are both on 1-year deals again. Do you think that's a position that the Chiefs may have to put a little more emphasis on going into the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly have both edge and inside both on my list. I mean, certainly one is the Chiefs are still kind of looking for their one tack. I mean, they're still looking for a kind of a nose tackle, somebody that can line up over a center and be a space eater. I mean, Mike Pennell did a really good job in the postseason of coming in and being that guy. And he's back, but Mike Pennell's also 34. I don't think that Mike Pennell can do that for 20 games.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's another guy that you're going to have to really manage his workload to make sure that you got him for later in the season. But then on top of that, I mean, that's just a position the Chiefs really need to fill. Two, I mean, even though you've signed Chris Jones, it's not too early to start looking for a backup for him for sure, and even a long-term replacement. And you can never have enough depth outside. I mean, the Chiefs are not going to have Charles Omenihu probably to start the season. So, you're talking who's after, Karlaftis, Felix, and Dana, and you mentioned you're not completely, knowing what you're getting with Felix quite yet. So I could see both those positions being something that they addressed during the draft, if for no other reason than just looking at some of the economics of it. You've got a lot of your defensive tackles that are on one-year deals, so they may not be back. You need to look at that position for sure, and you got to at least, like I said, I mean, there's one position that you really need to fill. And then two, you would like to not have to go out and sign a Charles Omenihu for $8 million a year if you can get a rotational piece, on a 4-year contract that is at a fraction of the cost.
Our guest is Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. He is our Chiefs insider and joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline every Friday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Find Matt's writing at ChiefsDigest.com. Find his tweets at Matt Derrick on Twitter. Matt, as we've seen more and more multi-round mock drafts emerge, whether they're 3-round, 7-round, team-specific mock drafts, starting to see more and more the suggestion that the Chiefs might look at drafting a running back in day 2 or day 3 of this draft. Certainly the Chiefs seem to have a type of running back that they like, but do you think that's a likely position for the Chiefs to target with one of their picks? Or do you think they might have their eye on the undrafted free agent market like they did last year when they brought in Derrick Prince?
Yeah, I think there's two ways that it could go. I mean, one is if there's a running back out there that's gettable for them that fits their model and their mold, and the Chiefs type. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco doesn't really completely fill that role. I mean, they Brett Veach's type and Andy Reid. I mean, they've typically gone for the 6 foot 220 kind of guys that have some decent speed and decent moves, decent size, decent speed, decent contact balance, all those things. I mean, think Kareem Hunt. I mean, that's kind of what you're looking for. You're not going to, those are unicorns. I mean, you're not going to find another Kareem Hunt necessarily, but you're looking for a player that's got that sense of size and speed. Anybody that you're going to get late in the draft, even if it's a productive player like Pacheco, there's going to be something about them, whether they're not big enough, they're not fast enough, they're not strong enough. They might have 2 of the 3, but they're not going to have everything. Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs have certainly, since the Clyde pick, have gone into the philosophy that you don't have to put a big draft resource into a running back. But I think they've also learned and experienced that if you're going to get a running back that is, a kind of a guaranteed out of the box 1,000-yard guy, it probably does have to be an earlier pick. So it wouldn't surprise me if, a player with the right, combination of size, speed, and balance was available early on, say, day 3. They might look that direction. And I could also see them going that way in the 7th round if there's a running back that they really like that they don't think that they can sign as an undrafted free agent.
What position group do you think it is most likely that the Chiefs take more than one player from in this upcoming draft? If they double dip at a position with the picks that they have or the picks that they add, if they make any trades, what position group is it more likely that they stockpile, so to speak, in this upcoming draft?
I think there's 2 for me, and it's on the offensive side of the football. And one for sure is wide receiver. We've talked about that. Even though they've got some pretty good numbers, I think they still want to throw some darts at it. So an early receiver, whether it's 1st or 2nd round, I think that's entirely possible. And a late round receiver, I think, is entirely possible. Even late round receivers can make it onto your practice squad. So I could see them definitely, looking for some developmental project players. And there's quite a few out there. I mean, this is going to be a deep draft. So I think even in the 6th and 7th rounds, you're going to find some productive, receivers. The other one that I think is a strong possibility is the offensive line, because we're all been focusing on needing a tackle. You're certainly, maybe looking at a potential starting left tackle if you don't think that Wanya Morris is that. And even then, I mean, you'd like to have a reliable swing tackle. If he's not it, or at least somebody to compete. So that's the one that we've all been focusing on, maybe even a first-round pick on a tackle. But the underrated one is the interior, because not only do you have Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, who are potential free agents next year, you've also got the possibility that, Joe Tooney, you're going to let go of him with his contract falling, being at a point where you could get out of it. He's got a $26 million cap hit for 2025 with, I think, $10 million in dead cap. So you could save $16 million from walking away from a 33-year-old Joe Tooney. You look at that, you're looking at bare minimum of probably replacing one of your interior players as a starter, maybe even two, depending on how you get things done and the franchise tag, all of that. So yeah, I think there's a distinct possibility that whether it's a center or a guard or somebody who's got dual capabilities, I think they were really looking at that. And I mean, there seems to be a lot of attention. We're talking about some of these positions. There's some local players, and Cooper Beebe, I think, would be a really good fit for the Chiefs in the kind of the middle round as maybe one of those interior players.
We're joined by Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. And kind of to piggyback off that question, where are you right now and who you would draft in the first round, offensive line or wide receiver? We were talking about this earlier on the show.
Yeah, to me, it's really kind of come down to a couple of things. I mean, one will obviously be where's the run. There's going to be a run on the position group early. I can absolutely see 5 tackles going in the first round, and if you get to the Chiefs, the 6th best tackle, is that who you want at 32? Maybe not. How many receivers are going to go before the Chiefs get there? There's a possibility. I mean, there might be 3 receivers that go maybe in the top 5 or 6. So, there could be a really big run on that. And then you come into the question about, if the Chiefs want to try and move up for a player, what can they do? And I think that 3rd round pick that they got from Tennessee, if they wanted to move up in the first, 32 plus that 3rd from Tennessee could probably get you as high as 25. So if you need to get in front of Buffalo at 28 to kind of make sure that, if there's 3 receivers, still out there and that you really like, there's a pretty good chance I think you can move up in front of Buffalo and get the one that you want, whether that's like a Lad McConkey or Xavier Worthy, maybe some different options there. But even like an A.T. Mitchell from Texas, probably could be there at that spot. I think that's probably what you would have to do. Tackle is probably the same. There's always a chance that a guy like Amarius Mims from Georgia falls to 32, but more than likely, I think you probably have to trade up. But those are probably at least the type of names I think would be available there. Now the question would be if the 5 best tackles and maybe the 6 best receivers are gone, now do you start looking at some other positions, because maybe the best player, the 2nd best player, a couple of spots. I mean, there might not be an interior alignment go, so with all of a sudden now you look at maybe the best guard in the market at 32 because just the positional value is there. I don't know. I mean, there's some tough decisions. I mean, I still think that the most likely option for the Chiefs is going to be a tackle or a receiver. And it's just probably down to about maybe a half dozen players at those 2 positions that I think it could be.
Finishing things up with Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. It's our Chiefs Insider here on 550 Sports Talk. Go find Matt's phenomenal work covering the Chiefs at ChiefsDigest.com. He joins us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. If it is receiver, Matt, being in the position the Chiefs are in, where you've got a largely complete roster, no matter who you end up drafting this year, you're still going to be a Super Bowl contender. Do you think it makes more sense at the end of the first round, in theory anyway, to take a big swing on maybe a receiver who didn't have as much college production, but has the traits, has that high upside, maybe taking a swing there because you feel like we don't need an immediate contributor, but we could use a guy with a high ceiling? Or do you think it makes more sense to go with a safer pick, someone who can contribute even if it's a high floor, low ceiling kind of player?
I think you asked the exact right question there about, what do you favor at that position? And I think the one thing that the Chiefs are going to favor, and I think that they've learned over the years, and Brett Veach has learned over the years, is favoring fit over everything else. That was probably what got them in trouble in 2019 because, with the whole Tyreek Hill news breaking at the beginning of the draft, suddenly, your draft process and your thinking changed a little bit from maybe even if you were thinking about if you're Brett Veach of taking a wide receiver in the second round of that 2019 draft. Now all of a sudden you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, I got to take a Tyreek Hill clone. That's how you end up with bad picks. I mean, if you're the Chiefs, I think you absolutely certainly just have to consider, just the different receivers and which ones would fit. And that's why I think that the extracurricular activities going on with Rashee Rice right now are particularly important. Because I don't think if you're Brett Veach, you can afford to get into the mindset of, wait a minute, something happens to Rashee Rice here, I need to have his replacement. I mean, you really just have to focus on the right guy that fits your offense and what they do, and not necessarily just a clone of the guy that you're worried about. Because if you do that, we might be taking the third or fourth best player at that position. I mean, you probably you need to be just looking at the overall fit of that guy in that offense, and not necessarily just one position and replacing one player. So yeah, I think that the Chiefs have done a better job with that over the years. I think the first couple of drafts, especially when you take Breeland Speaks, that was a square peg into a round hole from day one. And I think if they had it over to do it over again, I think the Chiefs would have gone that differently. But that's what happens if you have a hole in your roster, you get pigeonholed into taking a player. The Chiefs are a luxury. They really don't have any one spot that you say that they have to get a player. Even with left tackle, you could say, wait a minute, you know what? If none of these guys that we like is there at 32, why draft a second round tackle at 32 when you can go sign Donovan Smith and get yourself by for a year? That's the kind of decisions you have to make. And I think that the Chiefs have done a better job of doing exactly that and just favoring the fit of the player into the team rather than, just replacing maybe a certain player in their trait.
Real quick, Matt, are we thinking probably 4 to 6 games for the suspension for Rashee Rice? Because I think we all assume he's going to get one.
Yeah, I mean, with the amount of the charges, obviously plea bargains can only play into that and everything, new information. Certainly with how hard I think that the prosecutors are hitting him with charges. And the NFL wanting to send a signal. I mean, there have obviously been a few of these, incidents in the past, and sometimes they've been lucky, sometimes unlucky. I mean, Henry Ruggs was in a very similar situation, and he caused the death. I mean, the NFL doesn't want that. Rashee Rice was lucky he didn't kill anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been so much worse. So, yeah, I think 6 games is probably pretty likely. The only question is going to be when. I mean, and with the process playing out, I would bet it's going to be 2025 before we get anything handed out.
Matt Derrick's great work covering the Chiefs can be found at ChiefsDigest.com, and he joins us every Friday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline for our Chiefs Insider. Appreciate it, Matt. Draft time almost here. Finally almost here. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great. Take care, my friends.
That's Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talks up after the news. 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, and Spencer Dupuis here with you on this Thursday afternoon, leading you into Royals baseball tonight, 5:30 pregame, 6:10 first pitch from Citi Field in Queens. Royals versus Mets coming up tonight. Royals looking for their 8th win in a row. We'll see if they can pull that off coming up later on this evening. In this hour, we've got a lot of college basketball to get to. We've been following the Kentucky coaching search plenty. They finally have seen their white smoke. They know who their new head coach is going to be. If you haven't seen the news already, that little quip there should give you a hint who they ended up hiring. We'll also get to some KU portal news and K-State possibly making some real waves in the transfer portal. We'll get to that coming up later on this hour as well. What is wrong with you still to come? And we would love to hear from you as well. Top City Metal Supply text line number 785-272-9429. That is wide open today. And you can also check out the YouTube stream. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. We're closing in on 500 subscribers. We'll have to do something fun for 500. That's a big number. We'll have to do something fun for that coming up when we eventually get there.
By we, you mean Spencer and I, because it'll happen on a day you're gone.
Well, naturally, yeah, I will not be. I'm not kidding. I am going to be gone at the end of the month, fitting with the weekend of the draft. I'm not going to be here that weekend because I've got some plans.
Because you are a coward and you don't want to have your bad draft takes scrutinized.
Hey, I had our winning mock draft last year.
You did.
What if I get 5 right and that was the winner? Yeah. Not a great year.
I don't know that anybody's gotten better than like 6 or 7. I had 1 year I got 6.
I'm pretty sure 1 year Fulton got 1. I think he got the first.
That's going to be me this year.
Yeah.
1 year you got 1.
I might have.
Was this of the whole first round?
The whole first round.
Whole first round.
All right, I'll get 3.
Okay. All right. I like
calling
the
top
shot. The top 3 picks.
Top 3 picks. Okay. I seem to remember it must have been the 21 draft. Fulton 22. It was 2022. Fulton refused to change his pick from Aiden Hutchinson to Travon Walker, even though it had been obvious for about 3 weeks that Jacksonville was going to take Walker. Fulton just didn't change his pick.
He's like, I don't believe it. And I can't believe the Jaguars would do something that make the wrong decision.
And logically, he was right. Because Aiden Hutchinson good, Travon Walker completely forgettable. But in actuality, he was wrong. And it did not go very well for our guy after that. So yes, I will still give you a mock draft. But I won't be here that weekend. So I'm going to assume that we break 500 draft weekend. That's just going to be my expectation because I won't be here. And that's always how that seems to go. We will get to all your texts, all your YouTube comments coming up here. But I did want to get to some college basketball. The Kentucky Wildcats have found their head coach. It is a former Wildcat, a guy who we heard from CJ Moore yesterday, who said he loves Kentucky. It means the world to him. And Mark Pope is the new head coach of the Kentucky Wildcats. Shouldn't be surprised based on how the news was trending, how the wind was blowing yesterday. I don't think Mark Pope is a bad coach. Been to the tournament twice with BYU over the past 4 seasons. But Kentucky fans are on the verge of Jonestown in Lexington. Like, it is an unbelievable meltdown for some of their fans hiring Mark Pope because he's never won a tournament game. And that's hard to reconcile. And I understand that. And I also understand that even if he is a good coach, even if he turns into a great coach at Kentucky, which I will say, I don't think is impossible. He can coach up a little defense with better prospects than he had at BYU. I don't see any reason why he can't find success at Kentucky. But to be publicly turned down by Billy Donovan, by Dan Hurley twice, effectively, by Scott Drew, and then to settle for Mark Pope, who came out of nowhere. And I know that Mitch Barnhart, their AD, said, well, actually, he was at the top of the list the whole time. Yeah, okay, sure. Everybody says that. Sure, that was the case. To go to your 4th option, that's not a great look. And for a fan base like that, like Big Blue Nation, to settle on your 4th option, I wouldn't be completely freaking out, but I'm also an outsider. So I kind of get where they're coming from. But I don't think it's a bad hire. I don't think he's a bad coach.
No, I actually think it could be a very good hire. I think you have somebody who understands the culture at Kentucky and truly loves the place and is going to give his all for the university and for the fan base and for the program. And I think that if the greatest complaint about John Calipari these last couple of years has been the outmoded nature of the offense that all of these top tier 5-star recruits were playing in, that's not going to be a problem. Now you're going to be able to go to those 5-star guys, the kind of player, the caliber of player that has been choosing to go to Kentucky for years, and say, hey, this is what we're going to run. And you show them BYU tape. And BYU ran some really fun 5-out stuff with a big man as a facilitator this last year. They ran really good stuff to get open threes. They're going to come into the 21st century as an offensive basketball team. And I would think those things would be exciting, whether or not he's ever won an NCAA tournament game. First of all, a couple things about this. First of all, he was at Utah Valley when he started. John Wooden is not winning tournament games at Utah Valley. That's not happening. Secondly, Mark Pope's best team at BYU was his first one. That was the 2020 team. Anybody remember how the tournament went in 2020?
Sadly, I do. And it went the way of the dodo.
Yes. So, okay, if Pope's best team goes to the tournament that year as like a 4 seed or a 5 seed and they win a game or two, does that make you look at him differently? If it does, then why are we dinging the guy for having his best team in the COVID year? Third of all, if you're pointing to Pope's results in the tournament since then, where he has been upset as a higher seed twice, if you're a Kentucky fan, shouldn't you be pretty familiar with that outcome by now? Because that keeps happening to you.
Yeah.
So, to me, I don't think that. I think the negatives are. I don't think you could have hired anybody shy of Hurley, or I think anybody shy of Hurley would have disappointed the fan base. Honest to goodness, they would have complained about Scott Drew because, oh, who cares? He's only won the one national championship. He's only ever done it at one school. He's
insane.
He's corny. He's weird. Like they would have picked at Scott Drew. If it had been Billy Donovan, they would have picked at Billy Donovan. Guy hasn't been in the game forever. He doesn't like to recruit. How's he going to adjust to NIL? The Bulls stink. Nothing is going to satisfy these people. At the end of the day, Kentucky Athletic Director Mitch Barnhart had to know that once Dan Hurley said no, there was no hire, literally none, that they could have made that would have satisfied the fan base, that would have been viewed resoundingly as a win for the fan base. Unless you go and hire a guy with like genuine character concerns, like a Chris Beard or a Bruce Pearl. So at that point, if you're Barnhart, the hell with what the fan base thinks. I'm going to hire the best guy for the job. And there is, I think, a compelling argument to be made that Mark Pope is as good or better a fit than any other coach, any other Power 5 school in America would have been for that job. That doesn't mean I'm like 100% sure, oh, this is absolutely going to work and Mark Pope's going to lead him to a return to glory, this, that, and the third. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is this is as good a hire as Kentucky could have realistically made, and I think the chances are good that he succeeds there. Because I think he'll understand what it takes to succeed there.
And I do think there is value to that, to know, and because not every alma mater hire works out. Look at Missouri, among other places.
Look at Louisville.
That's
the other thing. Well, we don't want to be Louisville. They hired Kenny Payne, and look what that got them. Kenny Payne had no head coaching experience. Zero. None. He'd never been a head coach.
He's also an outlier. Like, no one's ever been that bad at a Power 5.
That's true.
Like that. A Power 5 high major program of that caliber anyway. I think it's a good hire. He knows what Kentucky is like. He knows what Kentucky fans want, what it means. And I will say this. I have also seen Kentucky fans talk themselves into, you know who Mark Pope's best friend in college was when he was at Kentucky?
It was his roommate, Jeff Shepherd.
Jeff Shepherd. You know who Jeff Shepherd's kid is?
Reed Shepherd.
Shepherd, the best player for the Kentucky Wildcats. I don't think he is going to come back to school. I don't.
No, he's going to be a lottery pick. There's no reason.
But I have seen fans say, well, hold on. Actually, if that means Reed Shepherd stays for another year, maybe Mark Pope is actually good. So I think it's a fine hire. It's not as good as Dan Hurley. There's only one other coach in the same stratosphere as Dan Hurley right now, and that's the last coach to win a national championship, and he's not leaving Lawrence, Kansas. So overall, I think I think it's fine for Kentucky. It's not what they wanted, but I don't think wanted and needed are maybe two different things and two important distinctions here for these particular teams. The KU news I wanted to get to, and we'll get to K-State a little bit later on in the hour because I actually think there's a good amount here to get to with K-State. KU, though, they had their end-of-season banquet last night. Bill Self spoke. I know a lot of the audio and video from that is out on Twitter if you want to go check out some of the specifics. A couple players in terms of returning. We already talked about this earlier in the show. Sounds like Zach Clements is coming back in all likelihood. I know Michael Swain told us that he was leaning that way as well when we talked to Michael on Tuesday this week. He's your third big or maybe your second big at the start of the year when Flory Badunga gets on campus. I mean, it's fine, whatever. Elmarko Jackson. There has been so much mixed messaging on Elmarko and whether or not he is going to return. If he is okay being a bench piece, if he is okay with this year playing 15 minutes a game or fewer in a lot of cases, probably, if he says, I am willing to develop because he hasn't played a lot of basketball, he's still young, et cetera, he likes KU by all accounts. If he is willing to stick through that, I would like to have Marco Jackson back. And I say that having been fairly hard. I mean, he had a bad year. I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that. I think, Spencer, you've said it. Dan, I know you've said it. I mean, he was not good this year. But there is value in having guys for multiple years. And if he wants to go elsewhere and thinks there's a better fit or he can start at a lesser program, fine, so be it. I'm glad you have the opportunity to do it. If he's willing to take a backup role again this year, though, and truly be a backup one, I would like to have Elmarko Jackson back. I would. And I hope he comes back because I think that's a good fit for KU, especially if you're in a position where Zeke Mayo is going to take scoring load off of Dwan Harris. Riley Kugel hopefully will. If you land another transfer, which we'll get to momentarily, that will help as well. You don't need to play Dwan Harris for 35 plus minutes a game, if not 38 plus minutes a game, because no one else can make a play for you. You're going to have other guys who can make their own plays on this year's roster, even if you don't add anyone else. And I do think KU will add someone else. So you can say, Elmarko, you can go be a one. You can facilitate. You don't have to put a bunch of pressure on yourself. I think that's a good situation for him. I don't know if you feel the same way. I would like to see Elmarko Jackson back at KU if he's willing to take that role.
So the thing that is different about Elmarko Jackson relative to a lot of recruits of his station, the McDonald's All-America types, is that he's still relatively new to basketball.
Yes.
So he didn't start playing seriously until high school, right? Is that?
I believe that is correct. Yeah, he only has played 4 years of basketball.
So you haven't had, since you were in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, people in your ear telling you, you're the man. You're going to go to the league. You're going to be, you should be the best player on your team. You should be starting. You should be headed to the NBA, one and done. Quentin Grimes was a guy, because I know that's like the natural comparison to make. McDonald's All-American, given a starting role, couldn't handle it, transferred after 1 year. Quentin Grimes had a much different basketball background than did Elmarko Jackson. And when it didn't work out at Kansas, it felt like he spent the whole second half of that season with one foot out the door. And he ended up going to Houston, and it turns out that he was a bit of a late bloomer. He's having a fine NBA career after he had a pretty good college career there with Kelvin Sampson to Houston. Things ended up pretty good, I think, for Quentin Grimes, all things considered. But this is not an equivalent situation in the sense that Elmarko Jackson had to have known going into his college career, there's a chance I'm not a finished product even after just 1 year. And now what he has to decide is, whatever his long-term goals in basketball are, where's the best place for me to achieve those goals? Is it in a starting role at a smaller program, maybe in a different league, maybe in outside of the Power 5 structure? Or is it here at Kansas with the resources at Kansas, with the teammates I'll be playing with at Kansas, with the lack of, maybe it's not quite right to say the lack of urgency for his development, but if he's going to be the backup one next year, if he returns, then it's okay if he's not a superstar next year. They don't need superstar production from a backup guard. They just need him to hold it in the road so Dwan Harris doesn't have to play 39 minutes a night from November to March. So I think there's definitely some value in Jackson staying for the long haul. and maybe even not just his sophomore year. Like, we're seeing guys. Tyrese Proctor yesterday announced he's coming back to Duke for his junior year. How many people thought he was going to be a 1-year guy when he went to Duke? He's going to be in a 3-year guy. You see that more and more. NIL helps out with that, certainly, because there's not this, I have to go get the bag. I have to go get paid. I have to go be a professional. If there's a NIL package that makes it worthwhile for Elmarko Jackson to stay and continue to develop at his own pace with a little less pressure involved, then I think Kansas makes a lot of sense for him.
And I do hope he indeed comes back. The other transfer that is out there, this picked up a lot of steam last night. Rylan Griffin, who was a starter for the Final Four Alabama Crimson Tide this year. He announced that he is entering the portal, which led to Tuscaloosa falling into a tizzy over this on Twitter, on Reddit, on message boards everywhere over why in the world is this guy leaving? He's a starter for a Final Four team, and he was one of our best players. What the hell? This past year, averaged over 11 points a game, shot 39.2% from three, a huge step up from the year prior, started 33 out of 36 games, 81% at the line, averaged nearly 2 assists per game, 3.5 rebounds a game. He is in the portal. And immediately there was some smoke that arose saying, hey, this is a guy to watch out for if you are KU. The KU insiders, the insider class, they said, hey, this is one to watch. That would be, and I do not say this lightly, literally the perfect fit for the 24-25 Kansas Jayhawks. You could not find a better fit, a better piece for next year's KU team. He's not a great defender, but he's not a bad one. He's okay. He's fine for a team that didn't play any defense in Alabama. Probably a better defender than Zeke Mayo. You can probably say that right off the rip, which is fine. And you didn't bring in Zeke Mayo to be a stopper, so you're not worried about that entirely. But between, and I've been telling you guys for a couple weeks now, for KU for next season, Bill Self will make the defense work because he's Bill freaking Self, and his defense has always worked.
They were a top 20 defense for the stretch where they didn't have Kevin McCullough last year, who was their best on-ball wing defender.
Yeah. So you add Griffin, who's a fine defender and with real coaching on the defensive side can be even better. Riley Kugel, who's super athletic and long, who should be a decent defender. KJ Adams, DeJuan Harris, your defense is going to end up being just fine. That scoring ability, that size on the wing. He's officially listed at 6'5", 180, so he's not huge, but he's got enough height on the wing. He's got a little bounce to him. He's a good shooter, a good natural scorer. That is a perfect fit. If KU can find a way, I don't know what the NIL exactly looks like. Bill Self downplayed a report from earlier this week about what KIU has in its NIL coffers, and of course he is. Why would you go to a thing with a bunch of donors in attendance and say, actually, we're good. We are good on NIL. Thank you. No, he's going to say, no, we need more. I don't blame him for that. If you can find a way to get a bag to this kid, he would be the perfect fit for Kansas. And then, regardless of what happens with the rest of your roster, you've got your main contributors. I think Johnny Furphy's gone. I'd put it at 5% maybe that he's back at this point.
If they're recruiting another starting level wing in the transfer portal, that's a pretty good indicator that they think Johnny Furphy's going to move on.
Johnny Furphy was not at the KU banquet yesterday, and the reason why, neither he nor Kevin McCullough were there. The explanation for McCullough was he recently had a treatment. He recently had a procedure and couldn't travel. For Furphy, he was back in Australia trying to work on something for his visa, which is very vague and made me think, is that because he's about to be a professional in the United States? That might make a little bit more sense. So I don't think Furphy's coming back. If you can add the 3 scorers KU has added, or 2 great scorers and a good athlete that KU has added, you throw in a little depth, bring back Elmarko Jackson, let's roll. Yeah, that is a team that I feel, and it might sound funny because I spent until like mid-February this past year saying KU can win a national title. It's probably like mid to late February where I started to say, okay, maybe not.
Maybe there's a little more that's going to have to go right.
may have to get a whole lot of luck here. I feel good going into next year if this is the core of the KU roster. If you can get a guy like Rylan Griffin in, because then you've got Harris as your point. You're still going to run, assuming Dickinson comes back. If he doesn't, that's a whole other thing. Dickinson at the 5. KJ is starting. There are KU fans who don't want KJ Adams to start. Guys, I don't know what to tell you. KJ Adams is starting. He is not going to suddenly become like a 5 minutes a game guy. He is going to play for Bill Self.
He'll also be your backup center.
Yes, which is fine. Good role for him.
Yes. He couldn't be that last year because they didn't have anybody else really play the 4.
Right.
Or the 3. Like you couldn't shift the lineups around because there weren't any other reliable wings to play.
Right, exactly. And then your 2s and 3s are a rotation of Mayo, Kugel, and in theory, in this hypothetical, Rylan Griffin, with DeJuan Harris at the 1, backed up by Elmarco Jackson. That's a good team.
Yeah.
That is a good Big 12 team.
And you're less reliant on freshmen, which in this day and age is kind of what you want to be. Then anything real positive you get from Badunga or Passmore or who's the third one? I'm blanking. Phylon. Yeah, anything you get from those guys positive is a huge bonus.
Yeah, they can actually develop. Flory, who by all accounts looks like he could be a star, but needs time, can get some time. That's a big deal, and I'm excited. I hope it's not a guarantee, obviously. It sounds like there's at least some movement with Rylan Griffin. I hope he ends up committing to KU. If he committed today, though, that would be the most blatant example of tampering I've seen from Kansas.
Yeah.
Every team tampers to a degree. I know that for sure. I'm sure KU has done it.
What's the punishment? What's the NCAA going to do? Wag their finger?
No.
I can't do that.
But you probably can't be that blatant. So I'm hoping this weekend.
What?
Well,
that's my response. Like, I understand, like the optics of it.
That's
Does it feel dirty? I guess, but like, or what? I guess is
what
Bill Self
it's
said.
just an optics thing. That's no, because you're right. There's no enforcement. That's
before we hit the break. Have you seen what Lawrence Police just tweeted?
I did see this about the spring game tonight.
Yes, but did you see what they put in front of KU football?
Yes. Let me pull up the exact quote here. I just scrolled past the tweet. 2025 college football playoff participants KU football will be escorted in buses down Bob Billings Parkway just before 5:30 to Rock Chalk Park for today's spring showcase.
That's ambitious.
It is very ambitious. I appreciate it, though. We are not quite to college football mode yet.
No, I just saw it and started laughing.
No, it's very funny. And the spring showcase is tonight. I'm going to do something that I can't believe I'm doing. I might pour a tiny bit of cold water on the KU football season. Just a little bit. But
well, if that's how the fire is raging, then let's maybe it does need a tiny bit of dousing.
Yeah, once we get through spring football, we'll get more into college football mode, and I cannot believe I might be the pessimist of KU football, but I just have some thoughts. We'll get to that a couple weeks from now, though. We have to get to a commercial break right now. We'll talk some K-State basketball later on in the hour. Their big movement in the portal. First, though, what is wrong with you? That's up next here on 580 Sports Talk. Sadly, it is going to be an uphill climb to find a new weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You. Our winner so far this week, oh boy, it is a lot. It is the penal prophet, the
penal prophet or the penile prophet?
yeah, however you want to say it. However you want to pronounce that one. We've given him a lot of names over the week. He is the priest in Poland who had a sex party, had an orgy.
Yes.
And
regular behavior.
Yeah, normal things and just Poland things. And one of the men who was there took too many ED pills, a little too high on his own Cialis supply. And he almost died.
Do you think they sell those at Polish gas stations like they do here in the States?
What's the Polish way to say horny goat weed? I don't know. You can find that in gas stations all over the place.
If anybody around here know, it'd be you.
Well, shockingly, I do not know a whole lot of Polish.
So, yeah, they called an ambulance for the guy, but the paramedics were refused entry and were only able to administer aid after police showed up and said, yeah, you have to let everyone in.
Unbelievable. That is our current winner for the week. It is a lot. My story for today, amazingly, we've got another story of a guy driving his car into the ocean. 56-year-old Robert Foster, native of the Villages, was arrested on Long Island Monday. Are you an on Long Island or in Long Island guy?
Long Island,
Long
actually.
Island?
I would say
it's
on
Long Island.
Long Island. Yeah, I would say on Long Island, personally. That's where he was arrested Monday after cops say he led them on a chase on the island's North Fork and then drove off a cliff in the town of Greenport. The 56-year-old man was later charged that day with second degree criminal contempt, third-degree criminal mischief, numerous traffic violations, unlawful fleeing, and arrests on 2 outstanding warrants. Cops say that Foster had allegedly slashed a tire on his ex-wife's vehicle Monday that was parked at her place of work in the town of Southold in their municipal building. Then he fled the small town. He gave chase on the way to Riverhead, about 30 minutes away, then turned around and headed back from whence he came, past Southold and into the nearby town of Greenport. During the chase, authorities reportedly had multiple patrol cars and officers, as well as aviation helicopters that were in the area. Quote, at some point, I think everybody we had working was involved in some capacity, according to Police Captain Stephen Grattan. Town of Southold police say they previously issued 2 warrants for the man's arrest for allegedly violating the terms of his ex-wife's order of protection against him. His ex-wife lived on Long Island. He lived down in Florida. Both warrants were for criminal contempt, one from last year, one from the beginning of this year. He was living in Florida, so when he tries to contact her, it violates the order of protection. During the nearly hour-long chase, cops say Foster ignored an end-of-road barrier and drove his car straight off a cliff in Greenport and landed in the Long Island Sound. Quote, he drove through the guardrail and ended up off the cliff and bounced off the beach into the Sound. That sounds dangerous.
Thelma and Louise did.
Yeah, he did. Officers say they were able to go to the beach and get him out of the vehicle and then arrested him. He was uninjured for the most part. I don't know what that means. How are you not injured for the most part? You either are or you aren't. He was in custody in the hospital, has yet to be arraigned. Since he will remain hospitalized, his arraignment may take place at the hospital by a Suffolk County judge. It is unknown yet if he has entered a plea or obtained legal representation. That's multiple stories in the last couple of weeks of people driving their car into large bodies of water or just the ocean. And I find that part very funny.
Yeah, that's stop driving into the ocean. That's not gonna lead you anywhere good.
The sign that said the road was ending was not a bit. Like, the road was really ending.
Do we think that Thelma and Louise were just injured for the most part at the end of that film? It kind of leaves it up to your own interpretation. Spoiler alert, by the way. That's how the movie ends.
Yeah, there's that's one way to phrase it, I suppose. All right, what do you got for today, Dan?
We are going to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and we meet 19-year-old Kirsten Dunn, and there's a lot of letters in that first name, who has been arrested and accused of aggravated arson in connection with a fire at a Dollar Tree.
Hold on. Kirsten, Keiresten. That's at least one full extra set of letters.
Kireston.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, the 19-year-old set fire to the Dollar Tree that they worked at. And damaged $29 worth of merchandise. Actually, no, that's much more than that. She actually did they actually did $1.5 million in damage.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
They had that much merchandise?
Yeah, that's a lot of small bags of gummy savers and
20-ounce bottles of Sunny D.
dollar gift cards and what's the cleaner? Fabuloso.
Yeah.
Pallets and pallets of Fabuloso.
That is a lot of Junior Mints. Yeah, I mean, she torched this place. Do we have a motive?
Other than she worked there and maybe we just went Milton Wadhams on the place? No, we don't have a motive beyond that. Crews said an operational sprinkler system controlled the fire enough to allow firefighters to enter and attack the fire. No injuries were reported. No word on when the store will reopen. The blaze took place back in March, but Dunn was taken into custody Wednesday for their role. I say there because Kirsten could go one either way for me, and gender is not specified. So
I would not commit arson. That is something that I don't think I would do even in a rage. I don't think I have the ability to commit arson.
Yeah. Okay, now there's a big thing here that says woman arrested for Dollar Tree fire that was staring at me right at the top of the story. So I will now gender this person.
Okay.
She set fire to the place.
Kirsten.
She did 1.5 mil in damages to a Dollar Tree.
That's crazy.
It's amazing. Like I heard that. I said, how is the building still standing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild.
But I guess you caused damage with the amount of stuff in there too.
Yeah, like the shelves probably don't cost $1.
Yeah.
The cash registers.
So you said she was 19?
Yes.
I think I found her college basketball recruiting profile.
What? Excuse me?
She has a profile. There can't be that many women who spell Kirsten like that. She has a profile over at NCSA. Kirsten Dunn's women's basketball recruiting profile. Class of 23. That would make sense to be 19, right?
From where?
Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Yeah, that would seem to be her. Yeah.
I don't know if she ever ended up playing anywhere. She ended up at Baton Rouge Community College. I'm not sure if she was playing. But yeah, I did find her recruiting profile.
5'9", 170-pound small forward.
Okay.
Averaging a double-double, 10 and 10 at Madison Prep.
Damn. Kicked a ball. Yeah, threw that all away.
Personal statement. I am a good candidate for your team because I am hardworking. I play team ball, not one-on-one ball. I am respectful and always eager to learn.
Get ready to learn penal code, buddy.
This says she shot 75% from the line and 80% from the floor.
Did she
That
only
can't
take
be
layups?
We got like a full game here. I'm not going to watch a full basketball game to see highlights, but yeah, that would have to be her.
Yeah. Dang. What could have been with Kirsten Dunn?
From the Top City Metal Supply text line from the 785, I would not commit arson is the quote of the day from Brendan. Put it on a t-shirt.
I wouldn't. I don't have the ability. There are some crimes that some people just are wired that they think they could do it. I could not commit arson. That is something I could not possibly do. All right. Who's our winner for today? I'm not sure that it matters.
I'm going to go with the person who drove off a cliff, the Thelma Louise
Yeah.
guy for today. But no, we're not beating the Viagra vicar or whatever we've decided to call the priest.
How do you not die driving off a cliff or at least get maimed?
Yeah.
It must be his car must have had incredible shocks and struts.
Yeah, good suspension is what I'm guessing.
Holy cow. Yeah, I'm with you. That one wins today. Our winner is the
Yep.
That's going to be hard to beat this month, man. That story is incredible. And it is our winner for the week in What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll come back in just a moment after this commercial break. We'll talk a little K-State hoops and the transfer portal, some big waves being made by K-State. That's coming up. This is 580 Sports Talk. 4:43 and now 4:44 on 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan. That's Dan. That's Spencer. Talked a little KU transfer portal news earlier on in the show. K-State is picking up a little steam in the portal right now. Already got a guard for this year, right? Doug McDaniel. We're all sold on Doug McDaniel. That's a good get. That is a legit good get.
Mm-hmm.
Terrace Reed, another Michigan transfer, has also been recruited fairly heavily by K-State so far. I was telling you the other day, I think Reed's just kind of a body. I don't know that he's a difference maker. You need depth up front if you're K-State, but I'm just not sold on Terrace Reed as a player in the Big 12. But K-State has made it very clear they are looking for big men, and they are looking possibly for multiple big men. So Baba Miller, who is a 6'11 big from Florida State, he's on campus this weekend. I believe he's in Manhattan right now. And if you're listening, hi, what's up, Baba? Other players that K-State is recruiting, Terrace Reed, Omar Ballo, who was an all Pac-12 caliber player the last few years. He'll be entering his 6th season in college basketball, by the way. He's a pre-COVID guy. He had a redshirt year, had a COVID year, whole thing. And Mark Mitchell, the former 5-star from Duke, native of KCK, was at Miege for a little bit. Then he was at Sunrise Christian down in Wichita, ends up at Duke, spent 2 years there. 2 solid years, I would say. Maybe not quite living up to 5-star one-and-done hype, but Duke's got some new young guys coming in. They're going to usher out the older ones. We'll see how that works for the Dukies. They do have a big-time class coming in this next year, though. Those are all guys that K-State is recruiting right now. Mitchell is, if I'm not mistaken, 6'8". Oh, I thought he was 6'9". He's listed at 6'8". He a big 6. He's a big.
Mm-hmm.
Omar Ballo is 7 feet tall. Terrace Reed is a big. As I mentioned, Baba Miller is 6'11". K-State wants size. Mark Mitchell's the fascinating one here, in particular, for me, because we brought his name up the other day that I had seen Eric Bossy over at 24/7 say, hey, that's not a fit for KU, but I wouldn't be surprised if K-State has some interest here. He's got the Kansas ties. They've already done legwork on him, and he's close friends with Taj Manning, who he was at Miege with.
Right.
Well, Jason Shear, who covers Arizona, we've brought up Jason's name a lot on the show over the last couple of years, covers Arizona for 24/7. He put in a prediction today, this afternoon, that Mark Mitchell will go to K-State. And he put over there on their message boards, Mark Mitchell's brother, who's kind of running his transfer portal entry, told Arizona that Mark is going somewhere else. And then he immediately put in his crystal ball pick for K-State and said K-State is the heavy favorite here. I don't necessarily dislike adding Mark Mitchell. I don't know that he was always used the best at Duke. I remember when he came up the other day, you had said that he was always someone who jumped out at you watching Duke. I have always liked the idea of Mark Mitchell. I don't know that he was always a great fit with that team next to Filipowski. He's a talented player. He was a 5-star for a reason. Not much of a shooter. He's much better near the basket.
Yeah, and CJ Moore points out at The Athletic on their transfer portal rankings list that Mitchell actually got worse shooting the basketball as a sophomore. He made 35% of his threes, 76% of his free throws as a freshman, smaller in a small sample. This past year made just 28% of his threes and 62% of his free throws. So this is not an addition that's going to be like, this is not a stretch 4 by any stretch of the imagination. But he made 59% of his twos, averaged 11.5 points, 6 rebounds. I love his energy. I love his toughness. I love his ability to guard every position on the floor. He's athletic enough to guard. He could legitimately guard 1 through 5.
See, and that, you mentioned 1 through 5. I think, and I don't know if he would do this, and I don't know if this is what K-State is recruiting him to do. I think I kind of like Mitchell more as a small 5 than I would as a 4 for K-State. Because K-State doesn't have a ton of guard depth, but they're going to have a bunch of guys who are going to rotate in. Day-Day Ames, RJ Jones, David Castillo, who, by the way, is playing for Team USA at an international showcase this week, as well as Doug McDaniel. All those guys can handle the ball. Looks like Kaluma's coming back. That's what it appears right now, that Arthur Kaluma is going to be back. He's going to be your number 1 wing scorer, big wing.
Did you guys see, according to Derrick Young, somebody in our from the 785 pointed it out. I went on Twitter. Derrick Young tweeted 40 minutes ago, K-State is not recruiting Duke transfer Mark Mitchell right now.
No
validity no validity to this.
Validity?
Sorry, for what it's worth.
So
okay, well that's fascinating.
Here's the thing with that. Like, there may be legitimate interest on Mitchell's part in going to Kansas State for the reasons that we laid out. Right? There's the in-state ties, their connection to Taj Manning, but we just reeled off Mitchell and Baba Miller and Terrace Reed and Omar Ballo, and just said that it sounds like Kaluma's coming back. There's only but so much room on the roster, right?
And that's what I was going to get to about Mitchell. Like, if you were recruiting Mitchell as a 4, Ballo as a 5, I'm going to be honest with you, that's a disaster waiting to happen because both those dudes have to play by the rim. But if you were only going to take one of them,
offensively, they have to.
Offensively, yeah, for sure. If you're only taking one of them, though, I'm very intrigued by either. I think Ballo is an interesting piece as your 5. I would love to play Mitchell as a small 5 on that team. But so that was the point I wanted to get to. Is I don't know that you can bring in, and I don't know how Reed would fit. And they're recruiting another kid from South Dakota State too, although he's probably going to go elsewhere.
Yeah, it sounds like he's
William Kyle.
Yeah, William Kyle. He's actually rescheduled his visit.
Yeah,
it's been widely reported that he's rescheduled a visit. And that might be Kansas State saying, hey, look, we got some other irons in the fire. So, like, you might be a fit here, but you're not option A for us.
So, and if that's the case, then that's fine. I would be happy with any of these. I think Miller is fascinating. You know, if he's coming from Florida State, he's a crazy athlete. That's one thing you know. He's tall and he's really athletic. You know you're getting that if you're taking a player who is recruited by Leonard Hamilton at Florida State. I would be happy with any of these dudes. I just don't know if it makes a whole lot of sense to get multiple. Because I think they're all guys who are going to look for starter minutes. That's essentially what it comes down to. But I am interested in any of these as possible fits for K-State.
Baba Miller is a guy that's turning up in a lot of mock drafts, but typically as a second-round pick. So there might be some incentive for him to stay in school and try and continue to develop. But it's kind of like the Arthur Kaluma thing where, Kaluma was being mocked in the second round, if at all, going into last offseason, and he ended up staying in college and going to Kansas State. So it makes sense to be aggressive, trying to keep Baba Miller in the college game. I like I like him at 6'11" better than I like Mitchell at 6'9". Like, I guess we're still learning in a way, but I think you can still, through 2 seasons, kind of understand what Jerome Tang wants in a front court player. I hesitate to say a center or a 5 or even what like that. Just like, what are you looking for in your front court? Because we know he's got a type when it comes to backcourt players. Like he's got a prototype there. But what is he looking for out of the center position, I guess is the best way to say it. Because we have seen him recruit that position, and the guys that he has brought in, he didn't inherit anybody, right, at center. The guys he has brought in from the portal, he brought in Jarrell Colbert, who has since departed after 2 years, but like bouncy, athletic rim protector. He recruited in back-to-back years Bebe Eziola and Will McNair, who were veteran guys who could score a little bit about the rim and be physical. They were really big guys, physical guys, bangers, if you will, down on the low block, who only had 1 year of eligibility left. So obviously being a veteran is important there. That would seem to line up with Omar Ballo. Yeah. That would seem to be, they think Ballo is that kind of piece. And like Bebe didn't start because Naquan Tomlin kind of blew up and it was obvious you needed to play him. But Will McNair was, played a ton this last year for Kansas State. Omar Ballo would start at the 5 for Kansas State. I don't know if he'd play more than 25 minutes a night, but he'd definitely start.
Do you have a favorite from that group?
A favorite from that group?
Favorite for K-State, we should say.
I mean, all of them have skill sets that I think translate really well to winning basketball, and all of them have foibles in their games that are reasons that they are not like serious NBA draft candidates. They really need. I like the mix of the size, the length, the athleticism of a Baba Miller. I think that's as close to a Tomlin type as you can get.
Fair.
And to round off kind of the point that I was making there was Naquan Tomlin seems to fit what he'd really like for his 4/stretch 5 to be. Like that seems to be a prototype in a Jerome Tang offense. And I think that you get a little closer to that with Miller at 6'11" than you do with Mitchell at 6'9"?
I think I would lean Ballo, Miller, Mitchell in that order. I think that's the way I would go. You need the depth there regardless. You need guys who are there, and you need guys regardless of what David Gasson does as well. Because I do think Gasson's back. I have no reason at this point to believe he's not.
Yeah, we haven't heard one way or another, right?
I mean, same way with Kaluma. It's actually kind of weird, I think, that we haven't heard anything from either of them. I thought it was more likely when the offseason started that Kaluma would leave than Gasson would leave.
Yeah, it seemed like he had a foot out the door.
But I don't know. Maybe it's an NIL thing. I have no idea. I heard some whispers the other day that K-State is feeling really good about where their NIL is right now. Maybe that is enough to get in Omar Ballo, or it is enough to get, if it is Mark Mitchell, who they end up getting. That is really interesting. We got a real network off here. What is that? On3 versus 24/7.
Right.
We got a real source off here. We are done early today. We are off at 5:30 because of Royals baseball. So we've got just a half an hour left. We'll come on back, get you our 580 Sports Talk headlines for the day, including an update from the Masters, an update on Rashee Rice, and some other players who are declaring for the NBA draft as well. Don't forget, you can hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line. That number is 785-272-9429. No more wasting money on metal pieces, guys, that leave you with unnecessary leftovers, because Top City Metal Supply will cut the exact lengths of aluminum, steel, and stainless steel that you need, tailored to your project specifications. Start optimizing your budget with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field. Sponsoring our text line. Again, that number is 785-272-9429. Our YouTube stream at 580 Sports Talk is open throughout the rest of the show as well. We'll be back after the news right here on 580 Sports Talk. It's the final half hour of 580 Sports Talk on this Friday afternoon. Brendan, Dan, and Spencer wrapping things up with you today. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We're still taking your texts to the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, and your comments on the 580 Sports Talk YouTube stream as well. You can also find the video if you want to check it out on Twitter at 580 Sports Talk and on Facebook at WIBW News. We are out of here at 5:30 because we've got Royals baseball. That's when pregame starts. The first pitch tonight is at 6:10 as the Royals take on the New York Mets. We've got the starting lineup for you for the boys in blue tonight. Michael Garcia leads off at third base. Bobby Witt Jr., your shortstop, hitting second. Vinny P at first base, trying to continue his hot streak. He's hitting third tonight. Cleanup hitter behind the plate is Salvador Perez. In left field, it is MJ Melendez hitting fifth. Nelson Velasquez DHing. He's your six-hole hitter. Adam Frazier at second base in the 7th spot. Hunter Renfroe in right field hitting 8th. Kyle Isbell in center field in the 9-hole, all in support of starting pitcher Michael Wacha. Luis Severino gets the start tonight for the New York Mets. Again, 6:10 first pitch, 5:30 pregame, and all the action for the Royals tonight and every single day you can hear right here on 580 WIBW. We really don't spend enough time talking about how Hunter Renfroe and Hunter Renfroe are both professional athletes in two different sports.
One with a W.
And somehow spelled differently.
Yeah.
One with a W, one with an E. Yeah.
It's not like it's a super common name.
Yeah. Also, Hunter Renfroe, baseball player, is a dead ringer for Mike Trout. And then they were teammates there for...
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Hunter Renfroe baseball has been around. I think...
Yeah,
let's see.
He's on to like his 6th team in the last 5 years, I think it is. Something like that.
Royals, Reds, Angels, Padres.
I want to say Rays, Red Sox.
Yeah, I think you're right about maybe both of those things. Yeah, he has been in baseball for 9 years and has played for 7 teams.
Yeah, good immaculate grid guy.
Yeah, great immaculate grid guy. He's never spent more than one season with a team other than the team he started with.
Could he have been an answer today? The Royals were on the grid today.
Oh, who are they with?
I needed a Royal Philly, a Royal Blue Jay, and a Royal with a 100-run season.
No, he actually would not have fitted any of those.
Yeah, he hadn't played for any of those teams. And hey, if he scores 100 runs this year, boy, I'll tell you what. It's the greatest offense in Royals history if that ends up happening.
Yeah, we're feeling pretty darn good. Yeah, 4 years with the Padres. 1 with the Rays, 1 with the Red Sox, 1 with the Brewers, part-time with the Angels and Reds last year, and now with the Royals in his first year with the team.
And Hunter Renfroe, the football wide receiver, may not play in the league anymore. Currently not on a roster.
I imagine somebody will
pick
him.
him
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Dan, weren't you wanting the Chiefs to do the funniest thing ever and sign him?
Then you'd have both Hunter Renfroes
In Kansas City.
playing in the Truman Sports Complex.
Yeah.
That would be hilarious. You could do like one of those like split sport jerseys.
Oh, yeah.
You can do promos on both. That's a big promotional thing right there. Marketing, where are you at?
For anyone curious about the Immaculate Grid, by the way, I went Ryan Madsen in the Royal Philly Square for
Okay.
2% rarity score. And then I had a little fun with the 100-run season, Hal McRae, 2%.
Nice.
For the Royal Blue Jay, his son, Brian McRae.
Nice.
0.6% on the rarity.
1.6?
No, 0.6.
Oh, 0.6. Wow. That's pretty good.
So those were my Royal-related answers on the grid today.
I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
Let's get to today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. Quick first one for me, just an update on news we brought you yesterday. Rashee Rice has turned himself in to authorities down in Dallas. He has also since been released. We'll get you a full write-up here. This is courtesy of ESPN. Chiefs receiver Rashee Rice surrendered to police Thursday on charges including aggravated assault after he and another driver of a speeding sports car allegedly caused a crash involving a half a dozen vehicles in Dallas last month. A spokeswoman for Rice's attorney said that Rice turned himself in at the Glen Heights Police Department. He was booked into the regional jail in DeSoto, Texas, and then was released on bond on Thursday night. In an emailed statement, his lawyer emphasized what he called Rice's continued cooperation with law enforcement, adding, quote, Mr. Rice acknowledges his actions and feels deeply for those injured as a result of this accident. Again, it was the right thing to do to turn himself in, but this is not a situation that's going to go away anytime soon. SMU wide receiver Teddy Knox, who we were able to confirm is indeed the one who plays for SMU. He has also been suspended after warrants were issued for his arrest on the same 8 counts as those being faced by Rashee Rice. They were both SMU Mustangs. That's where Rashee Rice played before he was drafted by the Chiefs. So, that's a formality. Knew that would probably happen after all those charges were announced, that he would turn himself in. Hopefully he is able to avoid jail time, but the punishment is not close to over for Rashee Rice, assuming a suspension and assuming that there's going to be a hefty amount taken out of his wallet, out of his income here in the near future, going to the victims and to legal fees. Don't race your cars. Do not do it.
No.
So there are details in the warrant about the injuries that were suffered. At least 7 people were injured, including a 3-year-old in the accident. One driver who was hit suffered injuries to her face, head, torso, and leg. And police wrote she will be limited to a life of limited mobility and sight while she seeks treatment. That is per Jamie Landers of the Dallas Morning News. So, some injury that, like, while she seeks treatment may mean that after she is done with treatment, she may return to a life with not limited mobility and sight. And
that's sort of what that sounds like.
Certainly how you could read that. But it just goes to show the severity of what we're dealing with here, and how fortunate everyone involved is that it isn't worse.
Yes, correct. It's
what I keep coming back to is everybody is so lucky this wasn't worse.
This was so dumb. This is so dumb. Do not race. Do not drag race. Do not street race. Do not do it. It is not going to end well for you.
First headline for me, what's going on at Augusta? The Masters tournament approaching the end of day 2, though it is crawling to a conclusion. There are some very slow groups on the course right now, and also it is windier than heck on the course at Augusta National right now. The guys out on the course are just trying to survive and get through to tomorrow. First, the update of local interest. Topeka's professional sports franchise, Gary Woodland, will not see the weekend. Tough day for G-Dub today. A 9 over par 81, a 2-day score of 13 over par. Woodland finished yesterday at 3 under, but really struggled on the back 9 today as the conditions got windier. Ended up coming in 43 and finishing again today with an 81. He will not make the cut. Looking at the leaderboard right now, your solo leader is Scotty Scheffler. He is 1 under today and 7 under for the tournament. He and his group are on 13 presently. 1 shot behind Scheffler, a tie with Max Homa, who shot a 1 under par 71 today. And Bryson DeChambeau, who was the round 1 solo leader, he was a 1 over 73 today. Nikolai Hogard is 4 under par for the tournament after a 1 over 73 today. He sits solo 4th, a tie for 5th between Cam Davis and Colin Morikawa. Ludwig Oberg, who has shot a 69. That's the lowest round of the day so far. Again, the conditions really tough at the Masters today. That was a 3 under 69 for Oberg. He is at -2, along with Matthew Fitzpatrick and Cam Smith, both of whom are still on the course, both of whom are 1 under for their days so far today. Big group at 1 under. That includes notable names Cam Young, Tommy Fleetwood, and former Masters champion Danny Willett. Willett was at 4 under before he tripled the 18th to finish with a 3 over par 75. Tiger Woods has made the cut for a record 24th consecutive Masters, or at least his 24th consecutive Masters. He did miss a couple due to injury. But Tiger Woods today, an even par 72. He is 1 over for the championship in a tie for 23rd. So he will make the weekend. Right now, the cut line is +5. And among the notable names currently sitting on the wrong side of that cut line, Tom Kim, Ricky Fowler, Victor Hovland, Justin Rose, Sergio Garcia, Zach Johnson, Brian Harmon, Jordan Spieth, Bubba Watson, and Dustin Johnson. You probably had a better day than Emiliano Grillo, who shot an 83 today. He's dead last at 15 over par for the championship. And as I was speaking, Scheffler just bogeyed the par 5 13th. So it is now a 3-way tie for the lead, with Scheffler dropping back to 6 under, tied now with Homa and DeChambeau.
You could give me an 83 handicap. I would not shoot par at Augusta.
That's one of those things, like if you're even a halfway serious golfer, it's fun to imagine, like, how would I do from the pro tees at Augusta? I would not break 100. There's zero chance I would break 100. And I think I might struggle to break 110. And I'm like, I don't have an official handicap, but I'm probably around an 18-20, realistically speaking, because I can generally break 90. Sometimes I don't, but generally I do if I play 18 holes.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'm probably around an 18. And yeah, no chance I'm getting out of there with anything. I'm shooting a radio station at a bare minimum. And that's only if you let me pick it up after, like, I double the par on each hole. I would make so many donations to the water at 12. It would be unbelievable.
I'm a scratch mini golfer. I'm good at mini golf.
Yeah.
Enjoy mini golf quite a bit.
Too.
Yeah. Have you been out to any of the courses, any of the actual golf courses in town yet?
No, I don't have my clubs.
Oh, that's right. You don't have your clubs.
You'll
get them eventually.
By the end of June.
Yeah. Okay. So you can scout out the courses then.
Yeah.
Where you want to end up going. Yeah, I don't have clubs either. I just use the handful of times I went when I lived back home, I just used my dad's old set.
I mean, that my set is just a bunch of hand-me-downs that I've put new grips on, invested a little bit into, but maybe I need to invest in a new set.
Maybe.
Yeah.
New town, new home, new clubs, new you.
There you go.
Scheffler gonna win?
I think so.
I
think the fact that he's battling the wind like this is, as long as he doesn't completely stub his toe and go down to like 3 or 2 under here in his final 5 holes of the day, I just think when the conditions return to a little bit more level, like there's still going to be wind this weekend, but not like today. It's howling. There's a clip out there today of Gary Woodland standing over a putt and then backing off the putt and watching his ball roll 40 yards away from him. Like, that's what the wind is doing today at Augusta. If Scheffler can survive and he's still within shooting distance of the lead, he'll run down. Like, Homa's never been in contention at a major like this or at a Masters like this. I think I don't think DeChambeau has a real low round in him again on the weekend. We haven't seen that from him since he won his only major in 2020. And the chasing pack is pretty far behind right now. So, yeah, I still think Scheffler's the pick.
What's your first headline for us today?
We hinted at it a little earlier. You talked a little bit about it. Voice of the Kansas State Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson. He's going to do play-by-play for the Royals this weekend on the radio.
Yeah.
His first time calling Major League games.
Okay, I was wondering if that would be the case.
That's according to the Kansas City Star. Shout out to Google for actually showing me that, because, locked up very tight is the Kansas City Star.
Yes. Got to pay for the paywall.
Yeah. But I think that's huge. I mean,
it's very cool.
It's cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wyatt is a good dude. He is if you've never gotten the chance to meet Wyatt Thompson, he is a very good dude.
Yes.
Part of the Kansas Broadcasting Hall of Fame. He's going to do a great job. He does a great job on K-State. It's going to be weird not hearing him with Stan Weber.
Yeah, right?
That's what's going to feel weird about this is he's going to be talking to Steve Stewart instead of Stan Weber. I'm sure Stan would have done it if they'd asked.
Right.
Sure, he would have been more than happy. Yes, we get a lot of Wyatt here on the airwaves of 580 WIBW.
We'll hear him here in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, coming up here very soon. Next headline for me today, just some players who are entering the NBA draft, leaving college basketball behind. No surprises with any of these. First from UConn, Donovan Clingan, the 7'2 behemoth inside. He is going to test the NBA. Well, he's not going to test it. He's entering. There's always a lot of very specific phrasing these days with NBA draft entries. Donovan Clingan is entering the draft. That's not going to end up changing. Woj of ESPN said in his tweet announcing this that after a dominant late season in NCAAs, the number 3 prospect in ESPN's top 100 is expected to be in the running for the number 1 overall pick. I think Donovan Clingan is going to have a spot in the NBA. Donovan Clingan in an average draft would be a top, you'd be a late first.
Yeah, I think you'd be back into the lottery.
Oh, okay.
I guess, how much do you believe in his offense? I guess is the question. Do you think he can score, or do you think he's just a rotation big who anchors your defense.
I kind of lean more toward the latter than the former.
And I do too, but
honestly, if he had some of the moves in his bag that Edey showed off in the national title, because I don't think Edey's going to ever be, I think he'll be a backup center in the league or a starter for a really crappy team. If he had some of those offensive moves, maybe I'd feel a little better, but I don't think Donovan Clingan has a bag in modern NBA lingo. I don't really think he has that, which makes me think that he's going to be more of a rotational guy. Good player, good, tall. He is definitely tall. That is a good asset for him. Other news today, a pair of Dukies are heading to the NBA draft. Kyle Filipowski and Jared McCain are both moving on. No surprise there. It was a surprise last year that Filipowski even came back as a sophomore, and then it worked out fairly well. They did get to an Elite Eight before being bounced out by NC State. So no major surprises there. Also, Alex Sarr, who is expected to be one of the top 3 picks in this year's draft, he also announced on ESPN today that he is going to enter the NBA draft. Frenchman. Or is he French?
Yes, he's French.
Okay,
yes.
He played in Australia this year.
Yes, he is French.
For the Perth Wildcats.
Non-zero chance he goes number 1. We have back-to-back years with a Frenchman as the number 1 overall pick.
Isn't there another kid who's also French who's in the running?
Yes. Don't ask me what his name is, but yes, there's another Frenchman who is a potential lottery pick as well.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh, I can see his name, but I cannot come up with it.
All
it's
right.
on the tip of my tongue.
I will pull it up for you so you can feel better and know his name. Let's see. Well, Zachary Risache.
Yes.
I'm going to assume it's Risache.
How by any other name? NBADraft.net actually has Risache and Sarr going 1-2 in their mock draft.
Yeah, that'll put butts in the seats. Goodness. Of all years for ESPN to say, what if we did two days for the NBA draft? This was probably not the best year for it.
I will only accept this if Adam Silver sings La Marseillaise. That's not how you say it, is it?
It is not, but I really do. I honestly appreciate the effort. La Marseillaise.
La Marseillaise.
Have you ever read the lyrics to La Marseillaise?
Yes.
It is so metal. It rules.
Yeah, it is.
It was written during the French Revolution, which should tell you all you need to know about the French national anthem. That's going to do it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. Again, we are done early today because we've got Royals baseball to get to, so we'll take a quick time out. We'll come on back after the commercial break and wrap things up with the final word. Been a fun week here on 580 Sports Talk. If you missed any of it, you can go rewind any of the video streams on our YouTube channel. 580 Sports Talk is the name of the channel. Go subscribe while you're over there. We would appreciate it a great deal. You can also go check out the podcast page on the website, 580wibw.com. All right, let's wrap things up with our final word for the week. Dan.
Kentucky fans are having a freak out over the hiring of Mark Pope, but I think in the long run, they're going to be satisfied. At the very least, they're going to enjoy watching Kentucky with the ball, which has not been the case in many recent years with John Calipari and his outdated offense on the sidelines. I think Mark Pope will end up doing a fine job at Kentucky, and I hope that BYU is able to hire a coach that keeps the Cougars competitive in the Big 12, because good coaches and good programs are good for the league. They make the league more fun. And at the very least, I hope they get a hire in quick so they can do the work of keeping the Egyptian Jokic in the league, because Ali Khalifa is in the transfer portal. That makes me sad.
I don't know how to go after that, honestly. Like that was a great, like,
oh, thank you.
Like straight to the point, got what you wanted. I do need to update the people. I have in fact filed my taxes.
Yeah.
For those worried that I wasn't going to get it done, I did. And I saved some money, and I got more money back than I thought I was going to get.
There we go.
That's the best.
So I think I'm going to treat myself to some Nike Jordan Lows.
There we go.
Okay.
Love that.
All right.
Good use of the return.
Yeah.
Final word for me today, and it's a little bit repetitive, but if you're looking for a reason to hop on with the Kansas City Royals, you can either use the eye test, you can use stats, you can just look at the box scores, and you can see, holy cow, this team is actually good, and they play fun baseball. They're good enough right now that even with some time to go this season, there is a legitimate argument that we should be recalculating what we think this team can accomplish this year. Fangraphs has already said they've got a 34% chance of making the postseason, higher than I would go, but this is the exact right time to jump on, to get excited about Royals baseball, and how fitting we've got Royals baseball coming up next. Pre-game coverage begins right at the bottom of the hour. First pitch between the Royals and the Mets coming up at 6:10. We're back coming up on Monday. We'll have a full show for you. Plenty to get to from the weekend. Maybe some more movement from the transfer portal. Plenty of Royals baseball. We'll talk NFL with Matt Verderam and much more. That's coming up Monday from 2 to 6. Until then, for Dan Lucero, for Spencer Dupuis, I'm Brendan Brzezinski. Talk to you then here on 580 Sports Talk.